All right, it's that time. It's Friday night here, and we're going to talk about all the latest happenings here in the world of sports, plus a lot of WWE as usual, some NHL, MLB, NBA. Who knows what else is on your mind? We'll talk about it. And to open it up as usual, he does a great job for us here on sportnarium.com/players, the host of the Hockey Fan Chat. He also dabbled a little bit in the world of professional wrestling, and he is our analyst to all things here related to pro wrestling. That is Mr. Randy Dillon. Randy, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Tom. It's Friday. The NHL playoffs are right around the corner. Another great week of wrestling on Raw, SmackDown, AEW, NBA playoff springs around the corner. Things are going well.
Things are going well. It's certainly funny here that several weeks ago everybody was like, well, I got nothing to talk about. I don't know. But now you almost have too much to talk about it. But certainly we'll get into the NHL obviously in a little while here. But obviously we'll figure it all out here. And somebody says I have an echo here. So we're going to try to fix that shortly. Let's see. Unmute. Do I have an echo now? Somebody here says I have an echo, so I want to try to make sure I remove that here. I don't know. But in the meantime, while we do that, Randy, a lot to get into here in the world of WWE. And I think the thing that I just saw on my screen when it came to SmackDown is new tag team champions, and it looks like maybe the seeds of Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch possibly. I guess Trish will address all these things Monday and talk about it.
Yeah, no, it's been something I think talked since a couple of weeks before Mania. Trish was going to turn on Becky. Everyone thought, including myself, was going to happen at Mania for a nice, exciting pop. It did it. Waited a few weeks, and it happened this week on Raw. First off, very disappointing tag team title women's match. I really want the women's tag team to get a little bit more respect and attention, but I understand the way they're going. Hopefully, Raquel and Liv can put more attention, get those titles back up. But with Trish Stratus, it's something we've been waiting for. The interesting thing I'm thinking is the plan is to have this feud on August at SummerSlam. Trish, we know, is not going to be on Raw every week. And she won't be, I think, in Puerto Rico. She won't be in Saudi. And I don't think she's going to be in the United Kingdom. So that's three major shows you're trying to build this feud with Becky for, and what are you going to do with Becky in the meantime for those months? This is the interesting question that gets to it now.
Absolutely, and that's a long time from now. You know, SummerSlam, we're talking just about 4 months or so, maybe slightly under that. And I mean, how do you keep a storyline in these days, in this day and age here, kind of warm almost when it comes to professional wrestling?
I think it's very hard. We saw how it was done when Brock was champion back in 2017, 2018, just to make him relevant and to keep that title relevant. It was nearly impossible. Now, thankfully, we're not waiting a year and a half for this story to end, but still, there's a lot of matches that are going to be taking place beforehand of this event. Maybe we might see Lita get involved because we thought she would hit backstage. Maybe another competitor is going to come out and challenge Trish to get her some momentum. But again, what do you do with Becky? And I think that's been the question since she's returned and ended her feud with Bayley. Like, what direction are you going? I think this is a good thing to do for Becky to get her some momentum going, but it's just so long. That's my only problem with it.
So what do you do then with Lita?
Lita, I think she might I don't know if she's going to have a match with Trish. I think that is the logic decision, but I don't know because we saw her WrestleMania performance. It was good, but not in the status we saw in the early 2000s.
Wow, I mean, that was going to be obvious, Randy. I mean, we're talking a long time ago now, and Lita and Trish have to be, I hate to say it, close to 50.
Exactly. So I don't see them having a match doing any good. Like, I'm even trying to think who can come out and even challenge Trish or call out Trish at this point. And then I guess this has to do more with what happened on Raw with the travel, but Bianca Belair, does she get kind of pushed back because they're going to be trying to focus to build this story with Trish and Lita for the next little while?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because where do you go from here? And it's a women's division that kind of has a void right now when it comes to, let's say, Bianca Belair getting a challenge. And you had this whole situation with the tag titles. I mean, I'll say it again, Randy. maybe the move never should have been to actually put these titles on Lita and Becky, and now you're going to go 3.5 months with, I guess, why Trish, why? But I mean, and I would even say at this point, does Becky really even need a win over Trish Stratus? I mean, to me, this is a whole cluster in a way, no?
I don't think Becky needs a win over Trish Stratus. I think a win over some other superstars could definitely help her to get the momentum. Becky just needs to get on a roll and start collecting wins and getting momentum. I don't have a problem with the man character. Heck, I didn't have a problem with big time Beck character. I actually really enjoyed that. I think the problem was the momentum after she lost the title. Like there was no momentum carrying her. And I think with professional wrestling, and I think any other sport, you need momentum to keep you going. And with
Yep.
stories, Becky hasn't had that momentum since returning in November. She's been feuding with Bayley for so long. Her momentum on a
Well,
kind
you
of a
couldn't
flat
put her right
level.
back to Bianca because she and Bianca feuded for months. So, I mean, where were they to go, unfortunately, with Becky Lynch?
There is no point. You can make the argument, okay, put her in Rhea Ripley, but you want to build Rhea Ripley. Becky Lynch is in a very dangerous spot. I would say where she was maybe a few years ago before the man character happened, where what do you do with her at this point?
It's an interesting question, and we'll certainly find out here. And I also want to talk about, obviously, what we see on the screen here, and that is Matt Riddle, and he's kind of aligned here with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who are the tag team champions. And we're going to see Matt Riddle and Solo Sikoa here in the main event of SmackDown. And I mean, how do you like Matt Riddle fitting in this year as we're kind of having a secondary bloodline storyline to whenever we see Roman again? But it seems like here for now, Matt Riddle is kind of slotted into this main feud with the Usos here. And what's your impressions of this so far? I know it's still early.
At first, I was against it, but someone on Twitter said this. Solo took out Riddle back in, I think, with November, December, and then it kind of makes sense why Riddle involving himself with the bloodline. He wants to get kind of retribution on Solo. I think what is setting up is either we're going to see Solo and Riddle at Puerto Rico at WrestleMania Backlash, or we're going to see a 6-man tag team match with the Usos and Solo versus Riddle and Sammy and Kevin. The interesting dynamic with if they do go with a 6-man match, what I think is really leading towards is a win for Riddle, Sammy, and Kevin. I don't know how much it does for them, but I think a win for the bloodline, the Usos and Solo, I think does more for them if that is the route they go because it builds momentum. The thing is, I'm wondering after this, what do you do with Riddle? Like, where do you put him? Do you put him maybe in the United States chase for Austin Theory? I don't think you can put him in a.
Well, we're going to have a draft split in a couple of weeks, and that's going to certainly determine that. I mean, but if we're putting him on SmackDown, do you just all of a sudden have him go back to Raw? I mean, that's a interesting question. Unless you're going to put Theory on SmackDown.
Yeah. I don't think the move to put Theory on SmackDown. I like the move. I like have Gunther on SmackDown, and I like Theory on Raw because they've kind of made the IC title and the United States title big for those two brands. I think a switch doesn't really do anything. I think you're better just keeping the titles where they are.
Fair enough here, and we're speaking all things related here to the world of professional wrestling with Randy Dillon. And of course, you can follow Randy at Randy DHILON on Instagram and Twitter. He does a great job for us here on Sportswire Radio. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. It sounds like we sound okay. I'd asked if a few people had heard any echoes, and it sounds like we're good. So I appreciate that. So let's talk about the Intercontinental Champion there, Mr. Gunther. And it looked like we're going to see maybe Xavier Woods there kind of match up with him. I mean, what do you make of that? He gets a win over LA Knight. LA Knight is always the favorite son of Twitter. And I mean, is that a fodder opponent you think coming up here for Puerto Rico? And give me your thoughts on where we go with that.
Yeah, I could see LA Knight in Puerto Rico. I actually think it's better for LA Knight to switch to Raw. And again, going back to what I said earlier, momentum. LA Knight had the crowd behind him, but in his win-loss record, he doesn't have the momentum. And professional wrestling momentum is strange. You either have the momentum where the crowd is fully investing. We saw with the likes of Sami Zayn.
I think Sami Zayn's the most recent example. I mean, Sami Zayn was carried basically from being, not to say an undercard guy, but a guy that was certainly middle of the card, to basically put it bluntly, to be a guy that was a main event. I mean, so I mean, I think
Exactly.
that's a fair point.
And then you have a guy like Gunther who's been stacking up wins, really bringing prestige back to that Intercontinental Championship. You see his momentum
And how about
coming
his
through.
interview he did with Ariel Hawani, where he
Yeah.
basically said that he could be main eventing WrestleMania 40, and he still might hold on to the title. And it's an open-ended question of who he gets there with, and there's something special there with him. We spoke about this many times on Sportswire.
Oh, absolutely. Gunther is a future world champion. In my eyes, you look at the future of the WWE. I look at guys like Solo Sikoa, Gunther, Austin Theory, Raquel Rodriguez, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, just to name a few, to really carry this company for years on.
No, no question about it. There is certainly a stack of talent that is definitely here, and it's nice to see. And I mean, I should ask you before I get to a comment. I mean, what is your impression of the new tag team champions on the women's side, which we didn't get a chance to mention? Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan, another name that has been so bandyhooed here on this show, and of course, like the rest of us, social media. And you like that setup and where we go there with those tag titles?
I think it's a good fit. I think for both individual, this is a good thing for both of them because we saw with Liv, the fans, I think, still believe in Liv, and Liv still has some momentum.
Yep.
I think, unfortunately, her run with Ronda, I just think she was in a very hard spot with that when you are facing someone with Ronda Rousey in with her name. She
Sure.
was in a difficult position. Raquel Rodriguez, she has so much potential. She's definitely the future women's champion in my eyes. I think let them build each other. We can see more from both of them, and then help build the tag team division. Get some more competitors out there because Damage Control, I think, did a good job start putting some name back in the tag team division. Hopefully, this is a big chance for Raquel Rodriguez and Liv to really not only make a name themselves, but also keep creating a name for the women's tag team division.
Absolutely, and I want to get to a comment here first, and that is Nicholas Crenson, the new Messiah, who said he just filmed Luck of the Draw for our friends over at Wrestling Championship Entertainment. Obviously, there was their big return here, season 3, and we expect that to air on later this week, and we'll certainly talk about it on Sportswire, I'm sure, the following week. And I have to ask Mr. Crenson before we go back into the regular wrestling coverage, any spoilers, anything you want to tell us? Certainly that the fans might want to know. Randy, WC has been an interesting place because I don't know if you saw a few days ago, I actually spoke to a killer rabbit. Then we had in the show we spoke to a killer rabbit. Then right afterwards, we were speaking with a resident rock star, Sean Jovi, not related to Bon Jovi, and he was actually asked advice on how to beat up the brute force Brad Weiss. So certainly, we've gotten a lot of.
I gotta check that out. That
Yeah,
sounds
it
pretty
was
amazing.
interesting. I actually posted the clip on Instagram, and it wound up yesterday. Myself and the Brute Force were on speaking with an ex-college basketball player, actually the Brute Force's boss, and Brad had actually addressed it. He said, I heard what this wrestler had to say about me, and then the wrestler came on the stream and said the same thing about Brad. So interesting times there with them. And the only spoiler Nicholas Crenson wants to give us is that his back is killing him. Okay, well, that's to be expected. So we'll certainly see there. And I mean, I guess I should ask you then theoretically about Roman Reigns before I come back to Damage Control. I mean, when will the next time be that we see Roman Reigns in a ring? Because I have a feeling after watching what I'm seeing right now on SmackDown, it ain't going to be for a while, Randy Dillon. Tell me what you think.
I don't think we're going to see Roman till May after WrestleMania Backlash because they changed the name of the King and Queen of the Ring to United Champions.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was wondering why they changed the name. The pay-per-view take place, I think, the day before, after, or of when Roman hits 1,000. So I think that's kind of a fitting name. So I definitely think we will see Roman then in the crowd and rest defending that title in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Okay, certainly fair enough here. Also, Mr. Cranston says, as a spoiler, also, as much as I hate him, Darkfire proved himself today, but certainly no comments relating to the outcome of the match because Nicholas obviously was in the co-main event there for the Wrestling Championship Entertainment's Interstate Openweight title. So we'll certainly see if there's anything else out there. And I normally don't talk about wrestling news too much, but there was something that I guess somebody gave me and it's on my desk, and I wanted to get your perspective on it. That was a kind of a guy that was a hot free agent, a bit kind of breaking off from the WWE here, is Brian Cage has re-signed with AEW, and I was curious. I mean, what do you make of that? Because if you think about it, over the last week, you told us that Jay White was coming to WWE, and I see him in an AEW ring. Brian Cage was a guy that was also ballyhooed about maybe coming to WWE, at least from some out there, if you believe what's on Twitter and social media. Yet he re-signs with AEW, and I mean, what do you make of this? And is it related to Jay White at all, or maybe even this whole UFC WWE kind of sale and transaction? What's your thoughts on some of this here? Am I making a big deal out of nothing?
Yeah, I think you are asking some good questions there, Tom. I think what it is with the sale, there's now a lot of unclarity of what the future of WWE is at this point. Is Vince McMahon back in charge? How is he not? The things coming out now, there's actually a lot of conditions in his contract that if he doesn't follow could terminate. How much control is Triple H going to have? What's going to happen with superstars? Is there freeze? Is there not? Our cuts are coming. There is so much unclarity right now with WWE. I don't blame Brian Cage for signing back with AEW. I think he's done a lot of great work with AEW. I still think he's a lot to give. And I think at this point, it's better to go to a place where you know you're familiar with for the next few years, continue to build yourself. And then when things get sorted out with WWE, and if Triple H hopefully is the one calling the shots there creatively, I think you have a better chance going there. So I think I don't have no problem with the move of him staying with AEW.
Okay, and I kind of probably think the same. And also, Skulls the Soul Hunter also wants to remind us of the sad news yesterday of Jimmy the Jester, who lost his life, I believe, and it was at a car accident, if I'm not mistaken. I think only the age of 34. So really terrible. You think about it, take a step back from being a professional wrestler, only 34 years old, and loses his life. I mean, certainly life is sure funny, but certainly, yes, we'll do it. Well, I don't have bells, Skulls, but if you want to do a salute, definitely we'll do it here with you. But certainly condolences, to say the least, here when it comes to the fans and certainly the family of Jimmy the Jester. And also, Nicholas Crenton, the new Messiah, actually has a comment for us, so I'm going to bring it up here. And he says, I would keep the belt on Roman until SummerSlam or WrestleMania 40. Again, this is a topic, Randy, that I think we're going to be talking about here for quite a while. And I mean, where do you think we go here? I mean, my gut is with Crenson, and I think I said this on Sportswire. I think at the very least it's going to be until SummerSlam, because I don't think we're going to see him that much in the ring. Yeah. But I mean, where do you go here with this?
This is something I've been thinking about over the last week, because I think at WrestleMania, when Roman won, I think he hit his peak. That's the top he can get. You're going 3 years, 3 WrestleManias in a row. You're close to that 3-year mark. You're close passing Pedro Morales. You're close passing Day 1000. You've hit the peak of the modern era of being the top guy. What more can you do with Roman at this point? I think SummerSlam is the best place for Roman to drop the title personally. Now, again, we're getting close to the 3-year mark for the title, but I think, listen, every milestone now Roman hit is impressive. So
we talked about the 1,000 ones coming up. We were the ones that spoke about that first on Sportswire. I want to say, well, not we were first, but at least on these different outlets.
Exactly. So I think SummerSlam is the bet, and the thing is, I'm trying to figure out who else can Roman work with if the plan is for him to lose the title next year to Cody, if that's the so-called plan, or have a match with Gunther. Now he wants to wrestle Seth Rollins. It's like there's not really many other options for.
Well, Seth Rollins. Before I get to a couple of comments, technically actually makes sense, because who is the one person that has actually defeated him technically since his run as champion? And that was actually Seth Rollins by a disqualification, I believe.
Agreed. Yeah. Now Xavier Woods does hold a win over Roman, but not for the title back.
Yep.
In 2021, but for Roman defending the title. Yes, Seth Rollins did do that. I would think Seth Rollins would be if Roman is to get to Day 1000, I think for him it would be really fitting for him to beat Seth Rollins in order to get to that day, because he's right now the one asterisk for it, because I think the plan is they want to build up Cody, and then I think SummerSlam is a good spot. But if you go to WrestleMania again, who is he going to face? There's not many more. He's really faced every one of the big names. He's faced Braun Strowman, Edge, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn.
Lashley technically he was in the ring there with. I
Yeah,
mean, Big E. I think when Big E
yeah.
was at his peak, he had a shot with him and Drew
Drew Mac,
McIntyre.
maybe Sheamus, but Sheamus, like there's not really
Eh.
many people out
Sheamus
there.
couldn't beat Gunther. How's he going to
Yeah,
beat Roman? That's what I would
exactly.
say.
Like there's not many people out there now you can say that Rome are legitimate challengers for Roman. So I think in long term, maybe it makes more sense for Roman to drop the title because my fantasy, I think, would be a perfect story to tell is that WrestleMania 40, Cody Rhodes defend the world title against Gunther in the main event. That would be
Well,
something.
listen, I told you about that Ariel Hawani interview, and I actually have a comment from a professional wrestler who is currently a champion. He chimes in that is the lawman Kyle Kennedy, who, by the way, is up at 2:55 a.m. And I actually had his shirt on earlier today, but it actually got so hot in New York, I actually had to change shirts and attire. And I want to thank the lawman for the T-shirt. We were wearing it with the CCW World Champion Grayson Raleigh, but the lawman Kyle Kennedy is basically he's putting himself up. He'd like to take it from Roman Reigns, so certainly. The Lawman, who's, by the way, one half of the Nonstop Action Wrestling Tag Team Champions from the Society, he is certainly volunteering that he'll do it. He'll get the job done. So I wouldn't doubt it from the Lawman. We call him Mr. Sportswire for a reason. And we certainly think that he could get the job done. But I guess a couple of names are thrown out here first. And also one of them is an interesting one, which I'm not going to really consider Johnny Gargano, but Bronson Reed. And Bronson Reed looks like he's going to be in a feud with Bobby Lashley. Now, that's another guy, I wouldn't quite say he's at a Gunther level, but what do you make of it down the road of Bronson Reed?
I'm really looking forward to Bronson Reed joining the main roster. This guy has shown he has a lot of talent, some good mic skill, he has a lot of potential. I don't think Lashley is the right fit for him for his first feud in the main roster. I think Lashley's had a lot of momentum going for him recently, and unfortunately it came to a halt at WrestleMania due to the plans with Bray Wyatt and the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. It's like he hasn't really been able to get that momentum going again. But I just feel it's a lose-lose situation for whoever loses this feud. If you Bronson Reed lose, okay, you can kind of rebuild him up. If Lashley used, he'd go down further down the card.
Fair enough here. And I certainly poked the tiger here because I have yet another world champion, Randy, that is tuned in here and has apparently heard this Roman Reigns discussion. And he is certainly wanting to remind me because he was a guest last week on the show, and he is the Firestar Wrestling Openweight Champion. His name is Mr. Leo McLean, the unpredictable jackal. He says, "Hey guys, heard the world champions and thought it was about me." Well, I mean, Mr. McLean, I know you have the championship over for our friends over at Firestar Pro Wrestling, but I mean, are you looking to maybe challenge Roman? Are you looking to put up your championship? Obviously, you're the company's first ever champion, open weight champion, and certainly we heard a lot from you when it came to Firestar Wrestling. So, I mean, I will certainly give you that much, and I'll certainly say you can follow Firestar Championship Wrestling at Firestar Championship Wrestling. Get Randy, another champion. That's you know what, Randy.
Well, the champions are coming out tonight.
I tell you what. Well, I gotta tell you, the last 4 or 5 shows I've done wrestling on Sportswire, I'm getting more and more people that tuned in. So certainly, this is why we keep you on. That's why you're my opener. Some of these other guys, no disrespect to them, they can't get the fans warmed up like you do. Our guest coming up here on April the 26th, which I believe is 9 o'clock Eastern time. That is Mr. Omen Black from the Iowa Wrestling Federation, the IMF, says, looking forward to being on, Tom, to put that worm Craven in his place. Boy, you certainly, we're getting everybody here left and right here that wants to say something. So certainly, yes, Mr. Black, I certainly am going to definitely have you on here. I'm excited to have you on for the first time. And certainly Iowa Wrestling, we're looking forward to speaking with you. And everybody can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. I think almost 900 subscribers on YouTube. And Skulls, for whatever reason, wants to say thank you. Oh, thank you for, yes, for Jimmy the Jester. Also, another name that comes up here, which I'm really not going to really, I guess, really consider much when it comes to Roman Reigns. And I guess I'm going to have to ask Mr. Crenton to clarify this. Johnny Gargano, I mean, is Johnny Gargano really believable for Roman Reigns at this point, or am I missing something?
Johnny Gargano can be believable. Johnny Gargano had that Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio type vibe where he's the underdog. He can do it. The fans will be behind him. The only problem is Johnny Gargano, I keep saying the word momentum today, but he had no momentum to take him into a feud with Roman. Like he really hasn't. We haven't seen the Johnny Gargano of NXT who had classics with Andrade, Tommaso Ciampa, Adam Cole, and just recently with who did he just face at
Oh, we're
Stand
talking
Deliver?
about Grayson Waller.
Yeah, Grayson Waller. Like he doesn't have that type of buzz he did with NXT. I think if Johnny Gargano did have that buzz, I would be all for seeing Johnny Gargano challenging Roman Reigns. But right now, he just doesn't have that on the main roster.
Yeah, I mean, I see the point on Johnny Gargano, and Mr. Crenson wants to say further, do a program with Roman and Gargano. Gargano can give Roman his first 5-star. I have no doubt that he could give him a 5-star match. I just don't know after Roman Reigns being a champion for almost 2.5 years, and Johnny Gargano, who's had at best on the main roster of a mixed track record, is necessarily believable for a world title feud. That's my only point. Now, I know that there's going to be some out there that would feel differently, but I do have some more comments. Crenson says further he would build them up. Well, I mean, maybe so. Leo McLean, the unpredictable jackal, which is also on YouTube, give him a follow. Subscribe to his page at Leo McLean. Well, my Oracle Bella, who was with us on Sunday's show, did advise me not to go after any more titles, but for now, I would love the opportunity. But are you putting up your championship, though? Does that mean that Roman gets a shot at the Firestar Championship Wrestling Openweight title? Because I'm sure that Mr. Reigns, I'm sure, would certainly want to crack at that because everybody wants to crack at that. Skulls, again, this is where we are at this point these days on Sportswire with Wrestling, Randy. Skulls continues his war with Craven, saying Omen Black, almost in a way, has to get to the back of the line. Leo McLean here says, I feel Roman will have the title till at least he's the third longest reigning champion. Now, my math would be that he passes Hogan,
Yeah.
and that puts him under San Martino and Backlund. Am I missing something on that?
No, that is correct. That I think if you go past to next year's Mania, I think that does take him past Hogan. But
Because Hogan was for a little over 4 years, right? Because he got it over the Sheik in '84, right? And
I
lost
thought,
it.
okay, then he doesn't go past Hogan. Then I thought Hogan was over 3 years.
But I think if we go to next year, that means what he's saying, the unpredictable Jackal Leo McLean, that he thinks Roman goes at least another 16, 17 months. You think he goes that
I
far?
think that's too long. I think everything in pro wrestling has a shelf life. We've seen it with the NWO, the Undisputed Era, Evolution, the Shield. The Bloodline has a shelf life. And that's just the reality of professional wrestling.
It has a shelf life, but let's do the timeline very quickly because I have a ton of comments here and I'll get to people. But I mean, let's think about it. The NWO, I guess the first incarnation, quote unquote, from my math, was just about 2.5 years.
Yep.
Not before the Bret Hart aborted efforts and some other efforts in the end of WCW. The Evolution was about 2 years, just about 2 years. Degeneration X was 2.5 years, let's say. I mean, we're with the Bloodline now for a little under 2.5 years. So, I mean, we're already talking about it's just about past or has matched some of those big time those stables and those storylines. So, I mean, I guess one way to look at it is maybe Roman being champion till, let's say, next year SummerSlam, hypothetically, if he's done it this long, I guess he could do it. I could do it if he's held it this long, might be the point.
The only problem with that is we know Roman's not around anymore. And I think fans are gonna get restless like they did with Brock. It was great to see Brock hold the title at time, but eventually everyone just wants to be the champion on the show. You want to see that big ticket. Especially if they're the champion. I don't think that's the right move to go with Roman. I think if he's going to be around more, then yeah. If Roman was around more, I would say yes, it can work. But it sounds like we're not getting that.
But here's what I don't get, and this is what everybody was saying. No, Roman's losing the title because this is for the internet readers, for the dirt sheeters, the brown noses, and my professional wrestlers that are here with us tonight will certainly chuckle at this. I mean, everybody was saying, no, he's definitely losing because he's taking time off. He's not going to be here. He can't do it. But yet, he's got the title still. And I guess to put a middle finger toward this internet wrestling audience, the IWC crowd, they're keeping the title on him anyway.
Yeah, I think you got to give respect to what he's done. Like he's done so much, especially when he came back during the pandemic. the Thunderdome era as
Oh, he's had
well.
cancer twice. I mean, listen, he
Yeah.
essentially for his career had to take a step back twice from cancer, which is really unheard of.
You look at how bad the fans wanted, like despised him in the early days, and now how much he's appreciative. Like he's a hot meal ticket. I think go for it. My concern is how much longer can this continue to go on? That's the question with Roman.
Yeah, I don't know, and I think it's a question. Unfortunately, I'm going to be asking you each and every week
yeah.
on Sportswire Radio, and we are here having a great time with Randy Dillon. And of course, if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, continue to give us a like and follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. A lot of new followers, just about 600 followers. I think we're about 8 or 9 followers away. So continue to spread the word with that. Also, YouTube, a lot of new subscribers on YouTube. So I appreciate that at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnerdm.com/player. And for my wrestlers out there, I'll be back with a load of wrestling coverage starting Monday night. I'll be with Big Cheese Logan, who just saw Limp Bizkit. Yes, Limp Bizkit is touring these days, and the Big Cheese actually saw them in the UK. He just saw Skillet play tonight, and he's taking a break from touring to see us live once again to get ready for his match over at Championship Wrestling Entertainment, 7:30 p.m. British Standard Time, 2:30 Eastern Time. Tuesday night, I'll also be with the Natural Born Fighter, RP Davis, who had a great video package. Almost reminded me of that Cody Rhodes package we saw before WrestleMania 39. He'll be squaring off for the Odyssey Pro Wrestling title against Ryan Hunter there. He's Morecambe's John Cena, so it'll be 7:30 p.m. British Standard Time. So great stuff here. You can also follow Randy on Instagram and Twitter, Randy DHIL. And so I got a ton of comments here. We're going to be doing about 20, 25 minutes or so. We'll get the rest of the Sportswire team on here. But people are talking, and let's go with it. First here, we'll go back to Omen Black, who's going to be on with us April 26th. So mark your calendars for that. If you're an IMF wrestling fan, I want to thank that company for their support. Craven, I know you're watching. Your time is coming. You will never see fear from me, especially when it comes to Craven. Unlike you, coward, I don't wear a mask. Skulls. What a question. Who in the hell are you? And I got to be honest, to be fair, there are people all around the world who might ask that question about Skulls. So let's move on. Randy versus Roman. All right. Randy, another name that's a figment of my imagination. Is Randy Orton coming back, or does he exist?
I thought Skulls was talking about me for a second. I'm like, Skulls, I haven't trained in a while. I will need to get back into shape. With Randy Orton, the talk is he's not close. Like, we talked about this last week with Randy Orton. His back injury, a back injury is hard to recover by. We've seen Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, they've been able to come.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels was a big one there.
But I think I said this last week, with the miles Randy Orton has put on his body, how much more does he have left? And I think at this point, it's with his age as well and how long he's been doing this and his durability. Like, thankfully for Randy Orton, he hasn't really missed a lot of time. Like,
no, if you think about his career, he hasn't had a significant amount of. I mean, he's had a shoulder injury a few years back, but nothing like to the level of an Austin injury, let's say, for example, or a Lita injury. You mentioned Lita or Edge's
Daniel
example, nothing
Bryan,
like that. Daniel Bryan.
So I think with Randy Orton, it really comes down to the question his health and his ability, because at his age, a back is so important. Like, it's really hard to say. Like, I would love to see Randy Orton come back. I think him versus Roman would be good, but I wish Randy healthy more than anything.
Yeah, and I don't think we really got that in terms. I mean, I know we got a match, I think, between them during Roman's run, but not really a feud with them kind of as a standalone. So, I mean, there is a point to that. I mean, there is a point. Omen Black wants to be acknowledged as a true ruler of the yard. But let's go to a good one here from Leo McLean. I'm going to throw this out there, by the way, Randy. I'm going to throw this out there for some of the wrestlers, because we're always on here 9:30 Friday nights. If you're a professional wrestler out there and you like commenting to us on Sportswire, if you want to hop on with us and share your 2 cents on the world of pro wrestling, you want to do that, I'd be more than happy to have you here join us, and we'll get a professional wrestler's perspective. So if that gets people talking, I'm willing to do anything for that. But I got a ton of comments here. So Leo McLean, the unpredictable Jackal, says, just throwing this out there, Solo being Roman's right-hand man, something happens to make Solo not trust Roman anymore, then it leads to Roman versus Solo, and my money will be on Solo to win. Now, I think you talked about this briefly, right? I think on a prior show you spoke about this. I mean, there could be a believable viability in that. That reminds me, in a way, maybe not as really well thought out as this, but Diesel and Shawn Michaels, in a way, was kind of like that. I mean, obviously, totally separate circumstances, but Diesel wins the title, and Shawn Michaels kind of gets a little jealous, and they eventually have a title match. And Diesel, who was the basically kind of the guy that was kind of under the apprenticeship from Shawn Michaels, and he beats him at WrestleMania 11. But I mean, you buy into that? I mean, could Solo be the guy, maybe even, or something?
Solo, if that does happen, that reminds me of Batista and Triple H at WrestleMania
Yeah, it's a
21,
good
where
one. Yep, with the
because
contract and the
Solo
thumbs down. Yep.
remind me a lot of Batista. Roman and Heyman remind me a lot of H and Flair with Evolution. The thing with Solo, I could see Solo beating Roman in a one-on-one match. I don't see Solo beating Roman for the title because one, we haven't seen Solo speak much. So does that mean Paul Heyman's going to jump ship to go with Solo, or someone else is going to be Solo's mouthpiece?
But
So
18 months from now, maybe that's
yeah,
a different ballgame to the unpredictable Jackal.
well,
Firestar Championship Wrestling's Leo McLean. Maybe that's to his point.
that is a possibility, but I think right now it's hard for me, even 18 months down the road, to see that because I need to hear more from Solo. We haven't heard much for Solo. Solo's been kind of that quiet guy, like with Diesel and Batista, and I think maybe a few others. They started to talk more and more. I need to hear
Well,
more.
Roman originally also with the Shield was like that.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Roman really wasn't the mouthpiece. That was more of Seth Rollins and then Dean Ambrose. So I mean, certainly, and I'm not going to ask you about what Bret Hart said about John Moxley these days. I mean, I don't know if I should even go down that road where he basically kind of, I guess, took a number two on Mr. Moxley about Moxley's blading in AEW. I'll kind of plead the fifth on that there, but. Skull says they should do AJ Lee 2.0 when she had to face all the women in the locker room with Roman.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I see the point. There is a point to that, but I think with the rarefied air that Roman has reached, I just don't see that. That
I
I
could
don't see.
see Roman maybe doing a 5-6 man challenge, maybe a 7-person ladder match, something like that. But
Nah, I don't think he's doing that. I think it's basically one on one.
yeah.
You got to get to him, and you're going through the bloodline, and they're gonna. That's the way I think they're going with this. Craven Rage, who is with us here. Craven Rage always has something to say here. Craven Rage versus Roman Reigns. I will bring down the head of the table. And Omen Black, I would definitely love to see it. Well, you'll have to tune in on the 26th of April. Skull says injury like Corey Graves, and he would love to see the ICW champion take on Roman Reigns. Okay, fair enough here. And I will get to the NHL in a second because I do feel like I should, but I do have a lot of people that want to talk wrestling and people. That's kind of what keeps us going here on Sportswire. But I mean, anything on AEW you want to take it on? Because I feel like I'm going to have to ask you this again because it seems to be the topic of the social media world and the social media verse. Are we finally coming closer to CM Punk returning to an AEW ring near you?
I would say the pressure is on actually for AEW and CM Punk to make this some type of agreement for him to get back. Because we talked about this last week and the big announcement, all out, they're heading to Wembley Stadium.
I heard 45,000 tickets so far. I think
Yeah,
Meltzer was talking about they
yeah,
sold so far. So they might
45.
get to 70,000. They
Yeah.
might get there.
Punk's name definitely helps sell more tickets. The thing is with Punk, and I was thinking about this earlier. This is the second time Punk has aired his dirty laundry about a company. We saw it first in 2015 with WWE on
The podcast with Cole Cabana, right?
Cole
It was
Cabana.
Cole
Yep, this is
Cabana
the
podcast.
second time he trashed a company, and he's really trashed people like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, who really paved the way for AEW with Cody Rhodes back in 2018, where they sold out Madison Square Garden. Without that event, there's no AEW coming. I don't see Tony Khan even thinking about creating AEW if that event was not an event. Because that event went off so well, it became a market. I think, and there's all this talk saying, oh, AEW is going to put on a Saturday show. They create the talent. There's no drift. I don't think that's all a problem. I just think you kind of just maybe able to say stay in the problem without saying disrupting. But Chris Jericho already come out and said we don't want him. John Moxley has come out and say we don't want
So
him.
what do you do with a guy like this? I mean, we've spoke about this, and Leo McLean certainly agrees with you, and I'll put his comment up in a second. But I mean, what do you do with somebody like this, where we know the ratings speak for themselves, we know the draw, what he is, but the locker room vehemently despises him. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know of a situation that's been like this to this level, Randy Dillon.
The only I can think of Goldberg back in 2003 for WWE, but this is nothing compared to that
Yeah, I don't
level.
think it's to this level.
No.
I mean, Goldberg was one thing, but Punk is like vehemently despised in that locker room. Vehemently despised.
It takes a lot for like we've heard of wrestlers getting mad at each other. People, the Seth Rollins, I think that one night he wanted to strangle Vince McMahon. Brock Lesnar throwing the title at Vince after.
Well, we did have the plane ride from hell once. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're well aware of that. I mean, that was a
Exactly, but this is where an actual brawl breaks out, and so much bad publicity happened, and where like Tony Khan couldn't do. He pretty much let it happen because he heard the comments beside Punk, and it was just pretty much he let it happen, thinking, okay, maybe I should do something, and that's where I think for Tony Khan AEW is you let this happen. This guy has already shown he is a loose cannon. He is a big draw. He's done so much, but for your company, the guys who really has helped this company, build this company, and you're kind of giving them a slap in the face if you're saying, hey, we gotta let him back. I think if Jericho, the Young Bucks, and Omega are willing on their own to say, hey, we'll let bygones be bygones. We don't need to be friends, but you gotta show us some respect. Don't trash us. You can't do things your way. Maybe it will work. But if it's more AEW going to Jericho and the Young Bucks and Omega saying, hey, let's make friends with Punk. We want for the bigger the company. I don't see that working.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like, based on what you're telling me, that this isn't going to work. But from the dollars and cents side of it, or the pounds and cents side of it for our UK fans out there, I mean, he draws more than anybody else out there. When you think about it, again, we spoke about this all the time. There are very few wrestlers that can pull out a casual fan. I mean, he's really one of the only handful that can do that. I mean, John Cena might be out there as a guy who doesn't go out there regularly. He would be a name. I think of an example who we just saw in the ring. I mean, Austin's certainly out there, The Rock, and CM Punk is the other one. I mean, so I think if you're going to go big with their event coming up in August, I mean, I would think he's the guy. And also on top of that, you're paying this guy all this money. I mean, don't you want to get something out of him here? So, I mean, I guess we'll have to figure it out and kind of see what happens. Obviously, a lot to go off here. But I do have to ask you, as we transition here in a few minutes, I'll get the rest of the Sportswire team here, and I'll still say what I wanted to say to the wrestlers that are here. Anytime you want to come on 9:30 Friday nights and you want to share your thoughts on the wrestling world, we'll certainly give you another chair, and certainly I'd be happy to do that. But NHL is interesting to me for a few things. First, I want to talk about some of the news on some of the different coaches and different management shakeups first before I get to the locals and maybe an obituary on a team or two. So I see your Capitals are going to have a new coach. I see the Pittsburgh Penguins are cleaning house, and talk about some of those shakeups here. It's although technically not the end of the regular season, it kind of is, but just talk about some of those news and notes here so far.
With the Penguins, this move had to happen. Our good friend Jen Sheffro, big Penguin fan, she's saying the move Hextall has made has really hampered this team. You think about the addition of Jeff Carter, how they have not gotten younger with players to help Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malcolm. The goaltending has been ferocious for so long. Hextall and Burke, they came in where the Penguins were still good enough, and they really derailed them quickly. The Penguins are now in a very weird spot where Crosby, Malcolm, and Letang, they can help carry this team, but they need other players to really step up and help. They need to get them young guys getting ready, and that's really hard to do when you have the likes of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malcolm. They're still putting up 90 who
Yeah,
isn't
they're not
playing.
Tays and Kane where it's
No,
clear that they're past their prime. These guys can still produce. These guys still have something left in the tank, so you can't do a full rebuild necessarily because these guys are still helping you.
exactly. But you need to start figuring out guys that can help Crosby and Malcolm compete. If you can't, you're going to be in for a
Well, I
hard,
think
hard
they've
time.
tried the last 4 or 5 years. Unfortunately, they've had what was it, 4 consecutive first round exits, and then this year they didn't even make the postseason for the first time in over almost 15 years, if I'm not mistaken.
And they've hit a lot of moves like the forward. They brought guys like Jason Zucker, Ricard Raquel. They brought a guy like Jeff Petrie. They made a huge blunder trading in John Marino, where I know Neil Villapiano and Justin Gianelli for the Devils are pretty much doing backflips with the playoffs coming around because he was a big part of that Devils defensive core this year. They've traded players that really could have helped this team. Jared McCann's a great example of another player who they had to let go. And look at the year he's had with Seattle to take him in. Tristan Jarry was just awful this year in net. And there's so many problems in Pittsburgh. I don't know if they can resolve them right away. I think Sidney Crosby and Malcolm can clean up some of those holes, but they have a lot of contract on the book with some players, a lot of money, and a lot of players who are older as well. Going on to the Washington Capitals, the Peter Laviolette move. I think we saw this coming as a Capitals fan. You had the injuries this year, but Laviolette's coaching decisions, his inability to play young players who could make an impact. I think some of the goaltending decisions where last few years he was blaming the shaky goaltending on Vanecek and Samsonov. You got a new duo. Charlie Lindgren went 9-1 in the month of December, and you decided not to keep running him. Laviolette, I think, digged his own grave, and this team's in an interesting spot where you owe it to Alex Ovechkin to go for the record to help him, but you also got to realize that you need to get this team to a point where you know the days of Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Oshie, John Carlson carrying this team could become the end. You need the younger players and
Well,
other
they're in a
players to help
similar
that.
spot again. The Penguins. I mean, Crosby and Ovechkin basically,
Yeah.
come into the league the same time. Obviously, Penguins have far more success
Mm-hmm.
in terms of going deep into the postseason. And Laviolette, once again, is out of a job, and the Capitals team that certainly did make a number of moves to kind of put themselves maybe into a rebuild. We'll see what happens. I do have some comments first before I go to some of the locals. And Craven Rage wants to go back to the CM Punk situation. CM Punk can bring in the money, but honestly, with that locker room hating Punk, I don't see if it's going to work. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. And you got veterans like Jericho. You've got the Elite. We certainly know their issues. And even guys like Christian, who are veterans in there, or guys like a Paul White, or some of those other older wrestlers there that have kind of, I'm sure, become those locker room leaders. And I'm sure that they're not really voicing for Punk, and they know Punk because they worked with him in the WWE. So all these people that came in, they're not vouching for Punk. They're not saying, yeah, we need CM Punk. We need him. They're not saying that.
Yeah. No, exactly. You're absolutely right there, Tom. You mentioned the name Paul Wright, The Big Show, Mark Henry, Chris Jericho,
Christian's in that locker room.
Daniel Bryan, Christian,
They worked with him. They know him.
Arn
They know him on a
Anderson,
day-to-day basis, and they're not
doing
vouching for him.
Goldust, Dustin Rhodes. Like, these are guys that were in WWE when he walked out in 2015 who were like, okay, the guy got a point, but now the guy who pretty much came in, and it's kind of ironic you think about it because you watch the promo of Triple H and him in 2011 where Triple H said you only do things that benefit yourself. You don't care about the people. And really, I look at CM Punk's run, it really was to benefit himself. Like, you look at his run, it was like he got his big return with Darby Allin. I really wish they would have done a series there to give Darby Allin some momentum because I felt he kind of felt flat after that. He had something with Eddie
MJF.
Kingston.
MJF he feuded with also for a while.
MJF he feuded with, but at the end, I really felt like how they were building MJF. Like, I feel like maybe MJF should have got a bigger win over him.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And then the whole Hangman Adam Page situation where you're a leader, this guy's a young face. And listen, the rumor saying that he never wanted to be champion, but he took the championship anyways. and there's just so much heat on Punk with his time in AEW that it really, like, I know Dax Waller saying we need this guy back, and there are other people in the AEW roster saying, yeah, CM Punk definitely helped, but you have other guys there like Chris Jericho, like Brian Daniel, like John
That's
Moxley.
who I look at and say those are the guys that were with him in the other company when he was in his peak. And they're not going to bat for him. It's one thing if somebody goes to bat for somebody and says, you know what, I need him. And they're not doing that. And I think that's, to me, at the end of the day, that's where this all leads to. And I mean, we'll certainly find out. And Leo McLean, the unpredictable jackal, wants to say, wish Scotland had a good hockey team to go watch, but we sure have the Beerhead Clan, not the Glasgow Warriors, because he says he follows up the Beerhead Clan. And for my UK fans, I also want to say I had a Mars bar for the first time. I don't know if you ever had a Mars candy bar, but Mars candy bar, by the way, 2 thumbs up, just for the.
There are a lot of those in
UK
Canada.
Oh, you have a lot of them in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, so because in America, I was in the supermarket yesterday. I saw the Mars bar, and I'm like, that's what a lot of the UK people have. And I'm like, I gotta go buy one of these because I hadn't had one before, and I'm thinking this is gonna taste totally different. It was actually like better than a Milky Way. So I have to say, shout out to all of our UK and Canadian fans. But Islanders return to the playoffs. They kind of get a little bit of a break and some luck as the Penguins, speaking of them, kind of find a way to choke their opportunity. And the Islanders, while they're at it, move up to the first wild card because the Florida Panthers had an opportunity to stay in that first wild card spot. They lose in overtime to Toronto, lose to Carolina. And then the Devils and Rangers always meet up in the postseason. It's always a big series, and that's what's going to happen here after a couple different things. Devils beat your Capitals, but Carolina wins. And I mean, going off on the locals here, which is an interesting note that for the NBA and NHL, it's the first time that all these tri-state area teams have all made the postseason since 1994. That hasn't happened. That's a really, really wild stat there. And I mean, what do you make of that when it comes to the Islanders and Carolina? Is that the matchup that was better for the Islanders? And Devils Rangers, I'm expecting is going to be a bloodbath.
The Islanders and Carolina, I think this is a perfect matchup for the Islanders.
Really?
Carolina, remember, no big move at the deadline. Andrei Shevchikov hurt. Backpack's already not coming back. So Carolina's missing a forward. Matt Barzal will play in game 1.
Yes, we saw that, yeah.
I think the goaltending, the Islanders have a huge advantage with Ilya Sorokin. I think the Islanders are built for playoff hockey. And I think you saw down the stretch how the Islanders were playing under Lane Lambert. He was playing them really similar to what Barry Trotz was playing them. Really tight defensive hockey. Like early in the year, he has a lot of running.
A lot of open-ended. They didn't have an identity. I think the teams, they did have a good start, but that middle part of the season, they struggled with their identity. Capitals game was the big example. They blew a 3-goal lead.
Exactly. I think Lane Lambert had really taken them back to the days with Barry Trotz. I think this is the perfect matchup for the Islanders. Me and Chris Pizzea, if you are going to be doing a recording tomorrow for a playoff episode, hoping to get that to you before Monday so you can get that out.
I'll be looking forward to listening to that. That'll be a good plug.
Listen, I honestly believe the Islanders will upset the Hurricanes.
Really? So 2019, it doesn't phase you at all when these two teams, I know different teams a little bit, but Carolina really had their way with the Islanders back then.
Yeah, Carolina had their way, but I think the Islanders, you look at them now, they're built a little bit more different, a little bit more experienced. The question is, can they score some goals? I think.
Well, the power play has been the Achilles heel of this team, and I mean, they were, I think, with Barzal out, or something like 9%. Well, they scored one against Montreal, so that might have brought them up to 10% over the games that Barzal missed. Those, I think, 22 games. But, I mean, in a playoff series, we know special teams are huge. If you can't score on a power play.
And the Hurricane, that might be the difference there, but I still like the Islanders because, listen, Brent Burns is going to quarterback that power play. I think you're going to see Noah Dobson do some good work. I think the big thing for the Islanders will be, is Bo Horvat going to be the goal scorer we saw earlier?
Which he wasn't really. And
I take that more for him playing more of a defensive role the way Lane Lambert had.
Right. I sort of agree with that. I mean, I think the X factor actually might be Brock Nelson in this series because Brock Nelson really was the guy that scored a lot of points in Pierre Engelbaum, another guy that the Islanders acquired, and he made some big plays for this team. I mean, that's another guy that I would keep an eye on, and
Adriel Paschal always shows up in the playoffs.
he's one of those, not quite a Claude Lemieux, but he's definitely a big game player. And I mean, Devils Rangers. What do you expect there?
Well, first of all, Neil Pellegrino, Justin Gianelli, and Billy McAvoy, please don't take it out on each other. We love you guys a lot.
You got wrestlers on Sportzwire. I would say, Randy, the wrestlers know you. The wrestlers don't know them. They'll back you up.
I know, but we're going to see a bloodbath. It's two rivals. The first time since
2012 in the Eastern Conference Finals.
This is going to be an interesting series because it's two teams, two very young teams. One team with the Rangers. A lot of people have the Rangers winning the cup this year. They are
I had heard that earlier in the season, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, New Jersey's no pushover. New Jersey scored. They had some firepower this year. New Jersey.
I think for the Devils is going to be, are they going to push back when they get shoved? Listen, they're not the biggest team. They are skilled. How the defense core is going to work? What are we going to see from Vitek Vanacek? Because listen, the Rangers, we saw them have a great postseason last year. I think the question is going to be, what are we going to see a Rangers team this year that really struggled defensively? I know a lot of people said the Rangers do well, but I know Billy McAvoy mentioned this quite a bit. The Rangers defense have really struggled, and if you struggle with that and you big bad turnover, listen, a team like the Devils, they are going to eat you alive. And how good is Shesterkin going to be for them? He's had an up and down year, so we saw last year in the playoffs, it took him till about.
I think New Jersey's goaltending actually might be better than the Rangers because Vanacek lost 11 games in the regular season. That's it. I mean, he was unbeatable at times. I mean, which New Jersey, everybody thought that was going to be their weakness with this team here. And before I get to a couple of thoughts here and closing thoughts and bring the rest of the guys here, Leo is like the sixth person today that has told me I should try a deep fried Mars bar. Now, for those that don't know what that is, that's pretty much like almost a death wish from what I've understood. So, I mean, in fact, one wrestler I won't share the wrestler's name, actually specifically recorded a voice message for me, Randy, on Facebook, actually telling me that if I try this, I won't come out on the other side. So I'm going to pass on the deep fried Mars bar because it might actually be kind of a rib on me, but I have heard it's good. I don't know if you've tried it, but I'm just going to take the Mars as a standalone bar. But that's speaking of deep fried and those that are certainly going to be on offense, to say the least. A couple of rematches here in the postseason, and I see somebody laughed at that. But we're going to see the Kings and Oilers rematch from last year's playoff, and once again, always seems to be a matchup. That is the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are really struggling right now. I mean, they are really slumping in the postseason going into it against the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that, if you were listening to some of the Canadiens players before Wednesday's game, certainly have them marked for a death in an early first-round exit once again. But what do you make of those series?
For the Kings and Oilers, it's going to be good, but I have I do want the Oilers to go far, and I would like to see them win, but I have a feeling the Kings
might pull off the upset.
You have a healthy Drew Doughty, Kevin Fiala added there. The Kings took the Oilers to Game 7 last year with the team they had.
And the Kings were up 3-2, don't forget, on Edmonton last year.
Exactly. The question's going to be the Kings goaltending. It's not Jonathan Quick, it's Phoenix Copley, a former Capitals goalie, and Jonas Corposalo, who, remember, played that four overtime game and 4 overtime period in the bubble in 2020. So
I remember that game. Yep.
Question there, but if the King can find a way to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl like they did last year for a few games, they're going to be problem for the Oilers. Toronto and Tampa.
Somebody has to win this series here. Somebody has to win it.
Yeah, but for Toronto, there's so much pressure just to win this round. Like, I think for Toronto, for them, this is it. They have to get the job done, and they can't just be the first round against Tampa. I think they need to go to the conference final, but you got to go through Boston as well.
I mean, Boston, I don't know if they're getting past Boston. Yeah. I will throw one more comment out there, and I'll bring the rest of the team on here whenever they want to pop on. Do you think Gerard Gallant gets replaced if they lose to the Devils in the first round? You know, that was a topic earlier in the year when the Rangers were struggling. But, I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, Gerard Gallant always does have a short lifespan when it comes to coaching, but what do you think there?
I don't think you can. I think the pressure is on him for next year if they get bounced by the Devils. I don't think he'll be fired, but I think, listen, the expectation for this team is to win. You already shown you can take this team to a conference final.
Yep. I
So
have a 2
you
games to nothing lead last year.
exactly. So the expectation is for you to win. So I definitely feel he will be on the hot seat going to next year if there is an upset.
All right, fair enough here, and I do have some people coming on here, so we'll bring them on in a second, and we'll do that first. Actually, Chris Bizea. Chris, obviously, nice to see you, Chris. Once again, I know Randy kind of gave us a preview of what we'll see maybe in the hockey fan chat, but Leo McLean, the unpredictable jackal, wants to tell me it's not a rib about the deep fried Mars bar because, Chris, everybody's trying to get me to try a deep fried Mars bar because I had a Mars bar, which is a treat for our friends in the UK, and I thought it was a great thing and one of the greater things to have, and I was getting messages from people to have a deep fried Mars bar, but he says it's not a rib. It's a tasty treat that will send you to food heaven if I make it. Even David Hasselhoff, who's a little bit bigger than me in Europe. I mean, I might be big in Europe, but he's got a little bit of an edge apparently over
Where do
me.
we find that here in the States?
I actually found it. There's a supermarket here. Rob Moraz could probably know where they are. It's actually called the Olive Tree, right down on Clove Road, just right before the Staten Island Expressway. And I was actually just by luck kind of ran into them. And that's where you can also, Amazon.com, you can also purchase them. You can purchase them on Amazon. But I just ran into them by luck, and it was at a local supermarket.
Try it on air. One of these.
I actually have it. Well, I have a video actually recorded of me actually having the video. I mean, actually, I could get the candy bar, but it'd be too far out of my way, and I don't think I could make it through the rest of the show if I did try it. But I can definitely tell you, I'll post a video tomorrow. I actually ate the video in a thing. But David Hasselhoff tried it when he was on the UK for the X Factor and loved it. I do remember the X Factor and the Brew Force, Brad Weiss, who's with us here. Before I get to closing thoughts here, Brad, I don't know. I have to throw this out there for humor before I get to these other guys. I don't know if you've ever heard of a Mars bar, Brad. It's kind of a popular thing over in the UK, and I actually bought the bar, and I thought it was first a running joke, but a number of our UK wrestlers and fans actually wanted me to have a deep-fried Mars bar, and I said to them, if I do that, you might be writing my obituary. Now, for you, you might be happy about that because you could take the reins over on Sportswire. You could certainly talk about all you want to say about confidence when it comes to the Mets and everything else. But all kidding aside here, the Brew Force, it doesn't seem like I'm going to try this at the moment, but I will share the video of me actually having this Mars bar. So I know you're not going to have the deep fried Mars bar at the moment, but Randy's familiar with it also. But that's here nor there. But Randy, I'm going to segue and certainly want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say it? Also, I admire the closet there. You've got a who's who of hockey jerseys there. I guess you can kind of wake up like I do and pick a wrestling shirt of your choice to wear, and you have a hockey jersey of your choice that you want to wear. And I give you the opportunity to share some closing thoughts, and always enjoyed our banter. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, got a lot of jerseys. Got some wrestling shirts as well I can choose from, so that's good. Also, on a wrestling note, with the draft around the corner with WWE, I'm interested where superstars are going to move. I think the best thing WWE is doing right now is Dominic Mysterio and Rey. Like, they have the most excitement, and Dom has so much heat. They say he's maybe more heated than MJF was last year. So that's pretty impressive to say. With the NHL playoffs, it's going to be exciting. There could be a lot of big upsets upcoming, but I'm going to save that all for the episode I will give you that I'm recording with Chris Bizea tomorrow. It's going to be good, Chris. I'm looking forward to that. Hope you guys all have a great night. Tom, thanks for having me again.
You got it, my friend Randy. Looking forward to that. That means another show for Chris. I'll get to play on Sportswire. I actually listened to the Talking Rivals last night while I was doing some manual editing on Microsoft Excel for something, so I appreciated that. I enjoyed the trivia, and great stuff, Randy. Everybody can follow Randy on Instagram and Twitter at Randy, DHILLON. So thank you, my friend Randy, and looking forward to that Hockey Fan Chat show.
Thanks, Tom. Take care, guys.
All right, that was Randy Dillon here, host of the Hockey Fan Chat. Also does some wrestling talk for us here to open things up on Fridays. And we're joined here once again. Now, this is once again an appearance with the Brew Force, Brad Weiss, and of course joined by Rob Maraska and Chris Bizea. And we'll go to basketball in a second for sure, but obviously want to open with the locals. And I know we'll definitely get into the Mets in a second, but Yankees I certainly want to talk about here. And Chris, give us the Yankees rundown. I was obviously listening to a lot of Yankees talk earlier today with the Pinstripe Chronicle guys. Obviously you and Patrick, although you guys were earlier this week, and I was listening to a lot about the Tampa Bay Rays. I definitely want to talk about them for a second, but give me your thoughts on the Yankees. Obviously interesting week here, and anything else you might want to share on the team we should know of.
Yeah, definitely a couple of tough losses. Yesterday, obviously, they got destroyed. What was it, 11-1? Gave up 9
Yeah,
runs in the first inning. It was over really quick. And this is against the Twins team that
they're
normally
good so far. I mean, I don't know what to
Yankees.
make of them.
Yeah, no, I actually I had them win in the division,
I
Minnesota.
did
So
hear that. I did hear
not
that.
that I thought they were going to be the Yankees here, but because the Yankees do own Minnesota. I mean, going back to like 2013, they just completely own them.
I think
So
it's even further than that. I mean, we go back to like when they used to match up in the
in the
early to mid
playoffs,
2000s.
yeah. So yesterday and then today they were actually up 3-2, but Holmes came in the eighth and he gave up 2 runs. He gave up I think it was an two RBI double to Correa. So it was a tough loss tonight, and I think it's kind of exposing what the Yankees' problem is right now is a closer. They don't really have a closer. Holmes was really bad last year in the second half,
Yep.
and he was looking much I would say a little better this year. He was a little shaky in his last outing. He got the save against Cleveland, but tonight, he couldn't shut them down. And I think that leaves a big hole here because Loizaga is out for a couple of weeks at least um, with what he has. So they're gonna have to figure out a closer here. I don't know if I don't like Holmes as the closer. They might keep trying him out there, but and they got to score runs too. I mean, last night I think it was 1 run. Tonight they hit 3 home runs, but only 3 runs. I mean, that's not getting it done in the major leagues this year.
Yeah,
So
there was a stat I saw before I move on to the other guys, and I think the Yankees were at the top of the list, or near the top of the list, where I think almost 50% of their runs over the past few years is via the home run. So it's a team that's either it's home run or bust. The team doesn't score runs via the old-fashioned way or any other particular ways. It's pretty much either if they hit a home run, they score those runs, but if they don't, they kind of struggle offensively. And obviously, again, you have Judge and Stanton, the two of the biggest boppers in the
and
sport.
Volpe got his first one tonight.
So I mean, I don't know what you do going forward with that, but the Yankees are still 8-6. Twins 10-4. I don't know if you'd say a surprise, but they were in first place most of the season last year before they kind of collapsed a little bit there. Obviously, Joseph Bostrom is tuned in here, and he says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Tough loss tonight. Tampa's run finally comes to an end, and Tampa's run will certainly get into as long as the Mets series as well." But Rob Maraska, Yankees here. I've hit a little bit of a wall. Couple of tough losses of late. Did get some early series wins early in the year, but 2 games here, especially yesterday's game, a tough blow. But give me your thoughts on the Yankees right now since we last spoke last week.
Yeah, I saw Volpe and then Judge's back-to-back home runs, and I said to myself, "Oh, this looks like tonight's going to be the Yankees' night." And then, they just score one more run with another home run. And what Chris said, I think, is true. The Yankees, they score runs by hitting home runs. They're built for that stadium, and they just need they need more than that right now. They're in a little slump.
Well, that bottom of the lineup, that bottom order for the Yankees. Listening to the Pinstripe Chronicle guys, and they were talking about this a couple different times. Their bottom of the order, I mean, does nothing for them.
No, and the Twins are good. I agree with Chris on that too. I picked them to win their division. So the Twins are pretty good. The Yankees, though, yeah, their bullpen is a problem. They need a closer, definitely. It's just not working out. And they got to score runs other than just hitting home runs. They got to manufacture some runs. They that's what they have to do. It can't always.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to do that right now. I mean, listening to Chris and your 7, 8, 9 guys don't get on base for you, and you only have a couple of guys get on. I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, I think when you have almost 50% of your total runs scored these last couple of years are via the home run ball, that's really tough in terms of asking for anything else on your lineup.
That's true, and that is a good stat. And we've talked about it before. The past 3 years, at least, that's how the Yankees score runs. They hit home runs, and that's the way it is right now. So we'll have to see what happens if they make some changes. But they have to do something.
Well, we'll certainly find out. In a long time no talk, Brad Weiss. This is the 4th time, actually, technically in a week. We are together here once for a spot. We'll definitely get to those New York stand-ups for sure. So at the end of the show, but speaking of one of the New York teams right now, that is the New York Yankees, and curious on your perspective for them before we move over to the Tampa Bay Rays, because I do think it's important to talk about them and their run. But I mean, Yankees back-to-back losses here against the Twins. Yankees have owned the Twins over the past, I'd say, pretty much generation here. But Twins come in here and And for me, Carlos Correa, a guy that could have been in a Mets uniform, was one of those reasons why the brute force that the Minnesota Twins were able to get a W here, and kind of talk about that. And anything else that might be on your mind here?
Yeah, well, first of all, Rob Maraska, great job. We both got blue shirts on again. So, last week orange, we said we were going to do blue this week,
Yeah.
and we came through with the blue. So, listen, we're on the same page, Rob. So that's number one. We got to say that. Number two, all right, obviously, welcome back, and Tom and all of us, obviously, being back on Friday night. But Tom, I just saw you literally 2 seconds ago.
I know, literally, Brad. I feel like we see each other more than we've ever seen each other.
It's crazy, but listen.
Probably sick of seeing me at this point.
To get to the Yankees here, I mean, you just mentioned it, and that's what I was going to talk about, was that bottom of the lineup. I mean, you're talking about a guy like Kiner Falefa, who, ladies and gentlemen,
oh my God! I mean, what an automatic out this guy
Chris
is.
mentioned Aaron Hicks's dead weight. I'm starting to really think Kiner Falefa might be in that category as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I don't want to go as far to this Hicks, because Hicks is just embarrassing. But Kiner Falefa is really struggling. And it's interesting to see what happens. You guys mentioned Volpe and how he's obviously in the lineup every day, and you got Kiner Falefa kind of floating in there right now, and he's not really doing anything. You have, good Glaber, who had a great start to the season, Glaber Torres, but he's kind of, cooled down a little bit here. That bottom line, Trevino, obviously, the catcher. So, you talk about a lot of interesting players at the bottom of that lineup. Now, when it comes to the Twins series, I mean, my God. I mean, I actually had the game on, and it was like, bam, home run, bam, home run, bam. It was crazy. Even my grandfather was here. And
good to see him. How's he doing?
And he's a Yankee fan. He's like, oh, my God. He was like, what is going on here? I've never seen this before. Is this a record? He's like, the Yankees are getting crushed in the first inning.
That first inning, I got to be honest, I don't remember a first inning like that in a long time.
It was unbelievable. I mean, they just were hitting the ball everywhere. And that guy, Brito, I felt bad for him. But, listen, he's a young starter. He has to learn from those mistakes, certainly. But, and then, Chris mentioned, the other thing, obviously tonight you lose. Holmes has trouble. And, the one thing that I've said in the past is that the one thing we always look to with the Yankees is always a strong bullpen. And that's something right now that I think is a little bit of a question mark. I'm not saying they're a bad bullpen, but are they really that strong force that we kind of know them as in the past, where you had all these weapons coming out of that bullpen? It's kind of a little bit of a mixed bag right now. You got the top, and then you got the middle, and then the bottom is not so great. So we got to see more from the Yankees bullpen. I think the rotation has been pretty good. I know Brito, again, had a bad start, but he's been pretty solid for all these starts besides the last one. So I won't go on the rotation, but I will pick on the bottom of that lineup, and I need to see more from the Yankees bullpen, especially some of those middle to, the guys, lower relievers who are really kind of questionable, at best right now.
Absolutely, no question about that. And I do have some comments, so let's get to some of those comments here first. And want to thank everybody for tuning in here. And first, Joe Dell, the legendary Joe Dell of Sleepy Hollow. There he is. Both great shirts, guys. Okay, appreciate the color portion. Joseph Bostrom says the Brute and Rob look good in the orange and blue, but different orange and blues, I would add. Different orange and blues. But, I was listening, Chris, and I want to talk about the Yankees for a few more minutes. I was listening to the Brute Force. I was listening to Bobby Tats and Donald Stewart and Rob Barros, obviously our friends over at the Pinstripe Chronicles. We had a marathon of shows that I got a chance to listen to while I was trying to struggle with my allergies and go on live here a couple times on Sportswire. And I mean, what do they do here with Kiner Falefa? What do they do here with the bullpen? I mean, Aaron Hicks, I heard for the whole week getting bashed, and I expected that because Aaron Hicks, I mean, he's certainly kind of like the modern day Jacoby Ellsbury for Yankee contracts here. But I mean, with these guys in this bullpen situation, what do you do? Can you expect any remedies? I mean, talk to me about it.
Well, you got to remember, right now, DJ was out the past couple of days, right? So if he's healthy, you're not seeing IKF probably at third base, right? You're probably going to see DJ there. And you got to remember, Donaldson is out too. Not that he was much better, but Donaldson's been out too, and he should be back soon. He was only going to be out the 10 days. So,
so
with those
maybe
guys,
the middle of the week, I think he comes back. Yep.
Yeah, with those guys coming back, you're probably not going to see IKF play much. And then with the outfield, when Bader comes back eventually, whenever that's going to be, hopefully in another week or two, you're not going to see Hicks that much either. So I think, those injuries will solve that problem. The bullpen, I think, even with you got to remember 3 guys are out right now from the bullpen. You got Loizaga's out, you got Trevino out, and you got Canely out. So what I think, and you guys, I think Brad said it, was that they're not really, the roles are just not, with Holmes not being a great closer right now, it messes up the entire bullpen. If you have a closer, then everything else falls into place. You guys know that with Diaz last year. If you had, it didn't matter who pitched the 6th, 7th, and 8th, you knew who was pitching the 9th, right? With the Yankees now, with Holmes, after his second half last year where he just went, really bad, this year he started off better, but he's still a little shaky. And now tonight, they brought him in the 8th because they were facing 3 straight righties, and it was the 9-1-2 batter. So I think that was the strategy there, and then maybe going to come in with someone else in the 9th. But I don't know. They gotta figure out who's going to be the closer, and you can't go closer by committee. Those I do not like. They never work out right. So I think the Yankees have to figure it out. If Loizaga wasn't hurt, he was my choice, but we'll see when he gets back in a couple of weeks, hopefully. But right now, I think that's the biggest problem, incredibly, but usually the bullpen is the strength of the Yankees, and that's
why we've gotten used to the Yankees for
it's uneasy to feel this way. But again, with injuries, I hate to keep bringing it up, but the injuries are really what's killing us. And then even in the rotation, right? You got 3/5 of the rotation out. Montas is probably not going to come back at all, and Rodon hopefully will start throwing some minor league games next week. So hopefully we'll see him in a couple of weeks. And then you got Sevy probably a week or so after him. So right now, I think the Yankees got to tread water until these guys come back, until we get healthy. And hopefully when they're back, everybody else stays healthy and they could get back, they could get on a run a little bit. But until then, they're just going to have to do what they have to do, next man up type of thing, and figure things out.
I guess it's magnified a bit, and I'll come back to the guys here in a second as we're talking all things related here to the world of Major League Baseball and more with Chris Bizea, Rob Maraska, and the brute force Brad Weiss. It gets magnified because Tampa has won all these games so far. So normally you'd say, 8-6, it's fine, don't worry about it. But I know it's early, but you look up at the standings and you're 5 games already out of first place. Now, I know there's a litany of ways here that are get into the postseason, but maybe that's why it's kind of magnified by the situation here. And Joe Dell wants to chime in here, and I guess I'll read the comment off. Mets are winning 6-1 in the third. If they blow this one, I am going to drink a Bud Light. Okay, but the game's going to end, let's say, even with the pitch clock, we're talking 12:30, right? 12:30, right? You're going to be up to finish the Bud Light? That's what I really want to know. So I think you're going to be out before you have the Bud Light. So I almost think you're not going to have the Bud Light, and you're going to probably be out
anyway. It's Friday night. Have a drink.
That's true. That's true. Look, I mean, right? Certainly, certainly, look, that's true. I mean, look, if you want to do it, you don't have to announce it. Listen, you don't have to announce that you're going to have a Bud Light. But, I mean, we'll see about the Yankees. But Tampa Bay Rays, let's talk about them for a second. Obviously, before we go into the Mets, I know Rob Maraska's got a contest again. We'll get into the contest. But the Tampa Bay Rays, I mean, I know it's early, but, to go 13-0 the way they did it, they finally lose today here in Toronto. And, I mean, Rob Maraska, what did you make of this run here by the Tampa Bay Rays? I mean, I knew they were good. I mean, we spoke about them. I mean, Chris spoke about them on the Talking Rivals show. I was listening to him and Patrick go back and forth on it. But they finally lose here tonight. And quite a start, historic one to say the least. And, I mean, what did you make of it? And anything else you might want to add on this team?
Tampa Bay always finds a way to win every year, no matter who they lose, no matter what's going on. Small market team. Could you imagine if they played in a big market playing like this? I mean, they would be packed all the time. What a run. I mean, now they're 13-1. 13-1. I mean, they almost got the record. And tonight, they could have won. What happened was there was an error by Brandon Lowe, and he turned like a double play into 2 more runs for the Blue Jays. So if that doesn't happen, they're still in that game and they could have continued the streak. I just think no matter what, that team's run great. It's just run great. No matter what happens, they lose they lose someone and they have a kid come up.
Yeah, they got 4 guys in the middle of the lineup with already double digits in RBIs. I mean, you think about that, and I know it's still only early in the season. We're just about 10% of the way through after this weekend, but to have that many guys knock in that many runs in what have we played 2 weeks? I mean, that's certainly speaks for itself. No.
Yeah, it's amazing. And in that division, too. I mean, like you said, the Yankees, 5 games out. Yankees got to get healthy fast. I mean, injuries are just killing the Yankees. We know that. And if they didn't have all these injuries, it'd be a different story. But Tampa, it's just fun to watch that team play. And I think they're going to continue winning all season. And they're a force out there. And it's every
They're
year.
A brute force. They're a brute force.
No. There's only one brute force.
Yeah, I mean,
well, I don't know. I should actually slightly interject with that because I don't know if you were following, but I will address it later on. There was a wrestler we had actually someone had asked for advice when it came to dealing with the brute force. This wrestler, Sean Jovi, the resident rock star, and he actually wound up having to look up the brute force. And one of the things he said was, "Oh, he's really big." That's it. He's a wrestler saying he's really big. So,
As Chris said, there's only one brute force. Let's make that clear.
That's right. Brute was good last night on the show.
That was fun. We had a lot of fun with Coach Winter. Obviously, I think Coach Winter was sort of I think we were trying to keep him up, Brad, because I mean he was really knocked out with allergies. I could go on and on, but he was like, "I gotta go. I'm really not feeling well," and the poor guy troopered on with it. But certainly, I want to ask you though, in a different take, because Brad, we covered a team, and you played against a team that had a big winning streak, which was obviously Yeshiva, the Maccabees, which were number 1 in the country, and they did a lot of great things, and we got to see it from a local level. But, when you have a team like the Rays start out like this, 13-0 and bordering history, I know it's kind of a short time here in the baseball realm, like when we do college basketball, you get a couple days to kind of digest it, to talk about it, and so on and so on. But when you're playing in that, let's say if you're the Rays, I mean, what's that experience like? Do you start to feel the pressure? Hey, I got to keep winning games. I mean, just talk about that and the start they had. And if maybe when they got to 10-0, 11-0, 12-0, 13-0, and I know baseball is different than basketball and the NFL even, but I mean, do you start to feel that pressure a bit maybe as you keep winning?
There's definitely, I guess, a little bit of pressure, when it comes to, we haven't lost yet, so let's keep it going. But Tom, I got to use that word, one of your favorites, because, what ends up happening when you win games is that you gain confidence, Tom Bryce, in your team. All right. And that's certainly something that the Rays have done. With that being said, I hate to be the Debbie Downer here. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. All right. The Rays, even though, listen, it is impressive, by the way, because any team in Major League Baseball, it's hard to sweep them. Right? It's hard to sweep teams. It's hard to beat teams 3 times in a row. But ladies and gentlemen, these teams that they played, the Athletics.
I know they weren't the greatest ones. The Red Sox, the A's,
they played the Tigers. I believe, some of these teams that they played. I mean, these are the bottom of the barrel teams. In the majors, and it's just ironic that the first time they play a team that's a better team. So, I'm not going to throw any shade on the Rays. We all know what they are. They're a team that always takes a team of guys who we think are all right and makes the most of it and ends up being a great team. And that's why I said last week I have a lot of respect for this organization because they really develop their players and they really take what they have and maximize their potential. When it comes to their pitching, I mentioned it last week. You talk about some of the guys that they pick up. You're like, yeah, this guy's not great. And then all of a sudden for the Rays, he becomes a star. Like he becomes great. That goes for their pitching staff. That goes for their bullpen. They do a great job of developing their pitching. And the same thing with their lineup. I mean, you see guys like Brandon Lau, as Rob mentioned. You obviously Randy Arozarena and Franco now is a stud.
Franco, where did this come from?
So they have players. So I don't want to say right now that because of their opponents, I should discredit what they've done. I'm just saying that was a factor in why they have done what they've done. But at the same time, that's not going to let me disrespect the fact that they won 13 games in a row to start the season. And it definitely shows us that these Rays are not, again, because some people, like every year, look at the Rays, their roster's not that great. Let's put them in third place. Let's put them in fourth, right? They're still a team that they're reminding you that they're still a team that's going to compete for this AL East, and they ain't going nowhere.
Absolutely, no question about that. And obviously get off to a phenomenal start. But also, as we were reminded last week on the show, I think it was Justin Gianelli that brought it up. The Mets, I think it was in 2017 or 2018, start 11-1 and didn't even go anywhere. The Cleveland Indians in 2002, I remember, started 11-1 and they finished under 500. So it's early. I know it's early, but the Rays are certainly different. They're definitely a different entity. Now, I want to get to your contest in a second, Rob Maraska, but I was curious because I was listening to Justin speak about this on the Baseball Banter, and I think even Patrick Trotty, your co-host, Chris, touched upon this on the Talking Rivals show. Two teams that came to mind off interesting starts. The first one so far, the Pittsburgh Pirates, 8-5 going into today, and the Arizona Diamondbacks. And these were teams that I don't really think anything conversely thought of much in terms of what they would do. And I mean, Chris, what do you make of those two teams? Maybe specifically the Pittsburgh Pirates first, who were certainly off to a little bit of a surprising start. Is that kind of an aberration, or maybe they're onto something here?
No, I don't think the Pirates have the pitching to carry this throughout the whole season. They got a decent offense, decent guys on offense, but I don't know about their pitching. It's still questionable. And listen, St. Louis is going to take off eventually. St. Louis is just too good. I thought they would run away with it, so I'm still going to stick with my St. Louis is going to win that division by a decent amount of games. So I don't think that's going to be, I think that's going to stop eventually. It's a great story, and I'd love to see Pittsburgh,
I mean, McCutcheon's back there, and he's off to a nice start. Reynolds is off to a big start. I mean, they have some offense, like you said.
Nice. I think Arizona's got the better chance of the two to, keep it going for the rest of the season, even though they're in, the much tougher division, obviously, in the West, because you got the Dodgers, you got the Padres, and you got the Giants, too, that are in there. But and the Rockies are actually playing decent, for them. But that's another team. I think they're still going to fall probably third place in that division. I still think the Padres, again, just like with the Cardinals, tons of talent on that team. You got Tatis coming, right? I think this week he's coming back. So I think the Padres are just going to get better throughout the year, and God knows what move they're going to make this trade deadline. So I would say the Padres are still going to win that division, but I think I think the D-backs are in a lot better position. I think they're a much better team than the Pirates. They're going to be right there, but I think they're going to fall just short of the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I don't know if it was on your show, but maybe it was on Justin's show where the Diamondbacks maybe could compete for 500, whereas the Pirates, probably were going to be realistically, let's say lose 90 games. Let's say, put it kindly, in terms of, and you look at their rotation. I mean, God bless them, but Rich Hill and Vince Velasquez are in the middle of their rotation. I mean, and, Rich Hill is like on, once again, another team he's touring on. He's almost becoming, I guess, the modern day Mike Morgan, where Mike Morgan was on what was he on, 12 or 13 teams at one point? And Rich Hill has got to be
40 something or whatever,
44 or something like that. He just kept hanging on and hanging on. I mean, there's certainly, Jesse Orosco played forever. I mean, this guy's.
And here's a little point about the Tampa Bay. They're still waiting on Glass now to come back.
Yep.
That's an ace pitcher or a number 2 starter on that rotation, and he hasn't pitched a game yet. So when he comes back, and I was actually texting over with Patrick, I'm like, this is something we got to think about, is he might be used as trade bait because he's only got one more year before he hits free agency. So, Tampa Bay doesn't like paying their guys. So I could see them trading him and maybe bringing back a bat or something or whatever they feel like they need. And
yeah, because, like you said, in that place, and I had a conversation with somebody. That's where I wanted to talk about the Rays, and I'll let Rob and the Brew Force come in a second. And they said to, Tampa Bay Rays. And they stopped me in the street, and I said, "Yeah, they're off, great start, undefeated start, but nobody goes in that ballpark." And I said, "Yeah. I mean, but but they always find ways to win, so they don't feel sorry for themselves, but they certainly find ways to keep going, and I have no doubt that they will." But I mean, for you guys, both the Brew Force and Rob Maraska, I mean, Pirates and D-backs, you buy any of those two, or they kind of just fall off there?
They're going to fall off. Now the Pirates have a really good closer. Okay, Bednar. He's good.
About 4 or 5 early saves, right?
Yeah, I could see it, but I could see when the Pirates are nowhere, he could be traded at the end of the year to a contender. But he's pretty good. And Arizona, I think they do have a better chance in that tough division. But Padres, Dodgers, so they're not going to take it. I see them as like a 500 or maybe a little above.
Okay, all right. And for you, brute force, I mean, anything that's brutally like of these two teams that say maybe they could be like Tampa Bay, or they don't have the force in them, as in Star Wars they might say.
Yeah, they don't have the force. Hell no is going to be my answer to this question about these teams. No, I mean, listen, I like, again, like the guys said, I like the Pittsburgh story. I mean, we all know Tom Bryce loves Pittsburgh because he loves his Steelers, so he had to bring, these
Hey,
guys.
I was happy. I was rooting for the Penguins to miss the playoffs. They missed the playoffs in hockey.
I guess that's the one team you don't like in Pittsburgh, but, the Pirates, you got to bring up the Pirates. So, listen, the Pirates, I'll give McCutcheon credit. He actually looks very good. He's definitely providing leadership to that team, and obviously a guy who spent a lot of time there, had a great, career there before he left and now is back. And he's batting .316 this year, which is quite impressive to start the year. And, you mentioned Reynolds, obviously, and that'll be interesting to continue to hear what happens with him in Pittsburgh, and Bednar as well, as Rob mentioned. So they have some pieces there. I see another guy, I believe it's Isaiah Joe, who's hitting pretty well in the middle of that lineup. So they have pieces, but like Chris said, I mean, they're not going to win the division. St. Louis, who beat them tonight, will win that division, and it'll be pretty steady. And then the Diamondbacks, come on. Like, I'm not reading into no Diamondbacks. I mean, listen, they got Merrill Kelly, who was pitching for USA, and supposedly was one of our better pitchers for USA this year. And I don't buy into him a lot, and I don't buy into a lot of what they have very much. So I'm not a believer in the Diamondbacks. I kind of see more of a losing season, a little more critical than you guys maybe said, maybe like 10 to 20 games under 500 of the Diamondbacks. So I think this is kind of an admiration for them that they're starting off this well. I know they kind of had a decent time with the Dodgers early in the season, but the Dodgers haven't been great. But we all know they'll turn it on at some point. But we all know, I think, from seeing them, even though they're not off to the greatest of starts, that the Padres, I think, are that team in that division, because I think they'll just continue to get stronger. And Tatis, who hit 3 home runs in a minor league game, 3. I know it's minor leagues, but 3 is impressive. So when he's back, I mean, they already have problems with San Diego just trying to find spots for people on the infield and the outfield. And it's just going to get harder when he comes back. And they have a good problem. They have a lot of good players.
Well, that's always a problem you want to have here, and certainly we are speaking about all things related to the world of baseball, and also want to give a quick mention to the D-backs because there's a guy actually that played here locally from Staten Island, Nick Ahmed. He was a Wagner College standout, I should say, hitting .400 for them and off the bench. Evan Longoria there is also hitting for them, so obviously you kind of want to root at least for the local guys who do well. Nick Ahmed is a guy who bounced around here, number of different teams, and he's doing well there for the D-backs. We kind of root for him almost like in a way for Steven Nagosic. But I'll come back to baseball in a second. But Rob Moroska, I know you got a contest. I know obviously people are curious about it. It's a Pete Alonso for fastest to 150 home runs, and he's got 6 so far this season. Maybe by the time you announce the winner, he'll hit another 1 or 2 at least. And talk about this latest contest for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio.
Yeah, it's a top Snell card. He's the second fastest in baseball history to hit 150 home runs, and I do have a winner actually.
Okay, and it's not Anthony Finkel, right? Hopefully, not Anthony Finkel.
And it's not Joe Gonzalez either.
Her name is Brianna Sousa of Bayshore, New York.
Oh wow, Bayshore! That's where Entenmann's used to be made. All right,
yeah. And she won the card. She's a big Met fan. Her username on Twitter is that Mets chick. So at that Mets chick won, and I want to say congratulations to her. And also before we get into the Mets and stuff, I just wanted to talk real quick about the fun I had with some Oakland A's fans this week.
Okay, let's
you
talk about that before
yeah
Anthony Finkel comes in here and hijacks the chat jokingly.
because you posted the clip when we
Yes.
were talking about the A's and
Yes, a
Vegas
lot of
and
people tuned
everything.
in. I think it was like 2,400 views or something like that, 23 or
Yeah,
2,400
and over 6,000 watches.
impressions. Yeah,
Yeah. So
impressions.
anyway, I tagged the Oakland A's and the newspapers, the Oakland Tribune, and the TV station out there. And some of these A fans were like, "Who are these guys?" And they should talk about their team, and they don't know anything about Oakland, and
Right.
um, you know. So I talked back to them, and they were upset because, of course, they don't want their team to go to Vegas. And that would be like us when the Mets were having bad years. And someone would say, well, the Mets should move to North Carolina. So I get where they're at, but they were really, getting on us. And, what do these guys know about baseball? And, right here, I think with all of us combined, you won't find a team that knows more about baseball than all of us together. So I was having fun with them, and they were having fun back. So they might be tuning in, and it just happens that the Mets are playing Oakland this weekend.
Well, I mean, look, obviously there's no question that it's been well documented of the issues there with the Oakland Athletics in their stadium and what the team or lack of has done when it comes to supporting the fan base there. It's definitely a fan base that is starved for a new ballpark, and they definitely want to see their team stay there in Oakland. And look, me personally, I don't root for anybody to lose what is there, but we'll certainly talk about the Oakland A's in a couple of minutes here. Anthony Finkel from Cape Coral, Florida, new resident there, homeowner. Are you moving down there permanently to Florida? Are you making like most New Yorkers these days that want to go to the warm weather? Although I'll be curious, Anthony Finkel, and I will congratulate you on the purchase of your home. I know I congratulated you on yesterday's show. Obviously, closing out a home is a big deal for a guy at such a young age. I mean, as a guy roughly in his early 30s as a homeowner, so obviously more power to you. Congratulations. Certainly more than I can say. But I would be curious. I think it might actually be warmer here in New York, actually, these last couple of days than it was in Florida. Because I think, what did we hit? 90 degrees just about today. Yesterday and Wednesday, I think we're just about that. So I think the last 3 days, we might have been warmer here than it was there. So I'd love to know what the weather is like there. And Anthony Finkel says, "You're telling me he didn't win?" I guess Anthony Finkel wouldn't know that Mets chick who's from Long Island, Bayshore, Long Island, where Entenmann's used to be made. So certainly, well, it might still be made, but Entenmann's themselves doesn't actually own the product. So that is all fine and well. And also, I thought this was a great one. I'll push it back up here before we get to the Mets and A's. I mean, by any chance, Brad, are you a Knicks fan? I mean, I would have thought you might have been a Nets fan. I mean, do you want to confirm or deny if you're a New York?
I think I've made it pretty obvious who I'm a fan of. But well, I'm gonna again hold my comments for the team later. But I will say there is a reason why I'm wearing this tonight. And
well, they play tomorrow. I mean, that would make sense, right? They play tomorrow.
They do, but again, I'll just wait, Anthony Finkel. Stay tuned, all right? And
it's gonna be hard for him to stay up. It's probably gonna be hard for him to stay up these next.
But I'll say this, hopefully he stays up, and hopefully somebody named John Gonzalez wakes up. Because where is he? I mean, he's normally supposed to be here by now, commenting and saying something. I mean, where is this guy, John Gonzalez?
I don't know. I think he actually shared the show at the beginning, which is kind of interesting here. And I'm also joined here by New York Giants writer, a new one here for the first time, Christine Furco. I know we've shared some of her stuff in different chats, but says ghost pitch. Now, is there a reference here I'm catching? Ghost pitch?
Oh, I'm sure she's talking about the Kodai Senga pitch, right? The ghost fork.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess she's trying to say because Senga's pitching tonight.
Well, I mean, I was gonna, you know what? People really, the last couple of days on Sportswire, everybody kind of wants to steal my my lines here. So let's talk about it then. Obviously, the New York Mets, Kodai Senga, obviously on the mound here. Mets are playing in Oakland. I'm going to let you, Rob Maraska, talk about it because you've been fired up, chomping at the bits here, wanting to talk about the Mets and A's. You want to talk about Kodai Senga. You got this lovely lady here who's listening and watching. So the floor is yours, and fire away before I let the rest of these guys speak.
Well, the score is 6-3 now, so you gave
Okay.
a couple 3 runs. But I like Senga so far. I mean, he's fun to watch pitch. He said his first game that in that first inning when he had trouble that he felt like he had ghost legs, but then he had the ghost fork, and he won that, and then he won his second game, and he looks pretty good right now, and I'm happy with the way he's pitching. The Mets came out swinging.
Yeah, I mean, Lindor hit the grand slam right early in the game.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. First, Oakland walked everybody.
I was going to say, Rob, they didn't have to swing until
the first 2 runs were walked in, but then Lindor hit that grand slam. So the Mets were hitting, and let's face it, really, the Mets should take this series against Oakland. If they don't, that's going to be pretty embarrassing. Sorry, Oakland A fans, but let's be realistic.
And Lindor's got 12 RBI so far, I noticed. Lindor is certainly kind of almost like last year, right? The batting average isn't super high, but he's knocking in runs. I mean, so I guess Met fans kind of happy with that so far on Lindor. Rob Moroska, I was listening to Justin Gianelli speak about this earlier today when it came to his contract situation, once again, always being brought up. But what did you make of the start so far from Lindor?
Yeah, well, he said the Mets weren't hitting that great. Let's put it that way. So they're starting.
No, I mean it's been Alonso and everybody else. I mean Alonso's got 1 million home runs, and
Alonso's been hitting, but Lindor. I'm not worried about Lindor. What I'm worried about is when are they going to bring Beatty up? Okay, when are they going to bring him up? And when is Escobar going to go on the bench? Because he really. The other day had a couple of hits, big deal. I want to see Beatty play. He hit a grand slam tonight for Syracuse, okay?
Yeah.
I think he has 6 home runs already. I think it's 6. I want to see him up here. I want to see him hitting, enough already with Escobar. Put him on the bench, in a bench role. But, I don't know about you guys, but I think the Brute wants to see Beatty up here too.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to Chris, but I do want to fast track a comment from the man from the Sports Authorities group, who is basically.
I woke him up.
All right. Well, he basically has the same comment he had for you when we left the show last night, Brad, with Coach Winter. Give back the towels and now. Did you take toilet paper in addition to towels from Florida?
No, I mean, dude, why is toilet paper here?
I can understand the towels if the towels are really nice, but the toilet paper would have to be like.
Oh my God!
It's funny though. John has accused him 2 weeks in a row now of doing this. Does he have proof that you did this? Maybe he does.
I mean, where's the proof? Did he ask Ernest Dove about this because I saw him, or did he ask Anthony Finkel because he's in Florida? I don't know.
Finkel would be the guy that'd be taking the towels. He would be the guy that would be taking the
towels. Yeah, but not me. I want to make it clear. So I don't know what your source is, John Gonzalez. I'd like you to send the source and the article that you're reading about this because I have no idea where you're getting it from. All right, so. Yeah, let's get it straight, John. Let's get these sources straight. Send me the facts. And if you send me the facts, I can tell you maybe it was true, but I know it wasn't. So let's just make that clear.
I mean, is it possible James D. Simone might have threw a tip or two out there? Jason Getz? I mean.
Oh, man. We'll get to a James D. Simone comment shortly that I have to address on this show with, Mr. Sean Jovi. All right. I'll get to that soon.
He's not related to Bon Jovi, by the way, just so you know. He's not related to Bon Jovi. We actually confirmed it on the last show.
No, he's Sean Jovi, but I'll get to him in a bit. But, let me address the Mets right now because I want to go.
Address the Mets before we go.
I want to go off what Rob has to say because last week I picked on a few players. I picked on Max Scherzer. I picked on Vogelback. All right, but I got a new class of players I'm going to pick on this week. All right. Well, the first one I got to pick on, all right, is Carlos Carrasco. All right, the first guy I'm going to pick on. What are you doing right now, Carrasco? I mean, you're literally batting practice on the field. I mean, this guy has been absolutely horrible. He can't locate pitches. He's not throwing that hard, right? Even though we didn't expect him to, right? At least locate. He can't do that. He's getting knocked around like crazy. And, I mean, tomorrow for me, for Carrasco, is an absolutely humongous start. I mean, because it's the Oakland A's. Are you going to get beat around by Oakland too? Because if you get beat around by Oakland, we got to seriously think about what we're going to do with you when Verlander comes back, because McGill has pitched well. Peterson has been fine. Like, are we going to take them out of the rotation and keep you in the rotation, who stinks right now? So I think Carrasco is in a big situation where he has to have a great start tomorrow. He's got to come out and show us something, because if he can't stop the A's lineup, I don't know who he's going to stop in the NL East or any of these other teams that we're going to play going forward. So that is the guy that I'm going to pick on number one. All right, number two. All right, you mentioned it. I'm going to do it this week. I was nice to him last week, but I can't be nice anymore. Eduardo Escobar. All right, let me get to him. All right, because this man, again, he's the third baseman, right? We're trying to trust him with, keeping down the spot until we finally get those young guys in. Well, guess what? Those young guys are good. All right, and not only that, I'd like to mention two guys, Rob Maraska. You mentioned the one who should be the third baseman, which is Brett Beatty. And again, he needs to be called up soon. I mean, we can't take much more of this. Eduardo Escobar. Again, these are the New York Mets. This is a team that has to win games this season because there's so many great teams in the National League. If you don't keep up, you will fall behind.
Braves are off to a good start. Those beloved Braves.
And by the way, it's that other team that's not off to a good start because of me. It's my fault. But anyway, listen, Beatty, all right, he's doing fantastic. Obviously he's back from injury. As Rob said, hitting a grand slam. He's been doing everything. But another guy who's been doing things that we should not forget about is Ronnie Mauricio. Another guy, who we should not forget about. And I know everybody's like, well, Lindor's at shortstop and he's in his way, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? If he's hitting like this, I'm not saying Lindor needs to get out of the way, but someone's got to get out of the way for him to get in the lineup because he's doing so well, right? That, again, you got to find some time for this guy potentially. Put him in a different position because he needs to be with the New York Mets. Whether it's, hopefully playing, coming off the bench, maybe if it has to be. This is a guy who's raking in AAA, and we need to really consider him. We haven't even talked about Vientos, who, hasn't been bad, but not to the level of these two guys. So ultimately, Escobar, you're on the hot seat. You got to figure it out now because there's guys ready to take your spot, and it's more than one. I'll even put a guy, again, he's not going to lose his spot, but McNeil has not been hitting well to start this season. He needs to pick it up, and I know he's a guy who will. We have confidence in him. Escobar, we've only seen 1 month. McNeil, we've seen years. So, that's what we need to see there. And I'll also put Mark Canha on the list too. You need to start hitting as well. The fact that I was at the game the other day against the Padres and they had bases loaded, nobody out, and this guy hits into a double play and Alonso strikes out. This guy's got to be able to come through in these situations. He just hasn't so far. So again, we have plenty of players that are ready to come up, that are ready to produce. And if these guys don't, like Canha, like Escobar, like Vogelback, right, it is time to call these guys up and it's time to make a move because these guys are raking right now.
No, I think there's no question before I pull up a comment and bring in Chris that you think about guys like Escobar. It's almost kind of like, in a way, how Yankee fans talk about Kiner Falefa or maybe even to an extent Hicks, although I think Hicks is certainly a unique category. But there's certainly a short rope for these veterans that have come in here and money was spent on them and they're not really producing. Especially when it comes to an Escobar. Though Escobar, I know the numbers looked okay last year, but it was really he had like 3 hot weeks and the rest of the year couldn't buy a hit. So you look at his numbers, they were an aberration. And John Gonzalez kind of piggybacks off you, Brad. Beatty has 5 homers and 15 at-bats, and Ronnie Mauricio has also been lighting it up in Syracuse. So, yeah, we'll obviously see with those guys. But, Chris, from afar, the Mets are off to, I guess, an okay start, kind of similar to the Yankees, kind of where everybody else is kind of bunched up right now in baseball and certainly in the National League. And they are here in Oakland, and it's an Oakland team, and obviously speaks for itself. But, what do you make of the Mets so far? And maybe if you have any different thoughts compared to what the Brute Force and Rob Maraska have said about some of the things they like about the team and other things they don't like so much.
Yeah, no, I like the team. I still think they're going to make a big move, this year, before the trade deadline for a big bat and maybe now for a pitcher too, because Carrasco has not looked good at all, obviously. The one question I had, and I still don't understand, why haven't they moved Mauricio off shortstop? He's not going to play short
Yeah, Justin mentioned that on his
They're
podcast.
not bringing him up
I was
to play
listening
short,
to
right?
he had
Ever.
made that point. I listened to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
why don't they move him to a different position so they can bring him up? Like, well, I don't understand.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I mean, whether it's second base, third base, I mean, one thing about McNeil is that he could also play the outfield. So if you're able to put him at second base and put McNeil in left field for some games, that's a possibility as well. I truly don't understand it. I think they really should put him at different positions because he's never going to play shortstop. Lindor's not going anywhere unless he gets hurt. That's the only thing that's going to, and you have Luis Guillorme as well, who can play all these different positions, but Mauricio's capable of it. And I think, come on, he wants to come up to the major leagues. He's hitting like crazy. So at this point, do anything to come to the major leagues. Let him play another position.
Listen, and if you can handle short, you can handle second, you could probably handle third, the outfield, but you got to put your work in, obviously. But if you could handle short, you could handle those other positions. So I'm not doubting he can't handle it, but I think it would make more sense to move him, to a different position. Or let's be honest, if they're keeping him at short, does that mean they're keeping that value as high as possible for a trade? Because, he would be the better trade chip anyway, because Beatty, there's going to be an opening at third base eventually, right? I mean, if it's not this year, it's definitely going to be next year. So at least there's an opening there for him. Vientos, he's more of an outfield DH guy, or what is he?
He plays third as well. He plays third. He plays a little bit out.
Kind of utility type. Yep.
So then maybe those two guys might be the trade chips. They might keep Beatty, and that might be the two guys that are going to move to get, whoever is going to be, because we really don't know who's going to be available either. That's the other thing. Who knows who's going to be available by the time, June and July come around? Who's going to give up by then? And so we'll see. It's going to be interesting. But I think the Mets are going to be a very busy team for before the trade deadline, because they're going to make a big move. They have to. They can't just sit around and, add a guy like Vogelbach and Darren Ruff again. They got to go big time.
And Mets fans really were not happy about that last year. We remember being on the air and around that time, and they had these guys, and Ruff again was one of those guys that certainly had a rough time with Mets Twitter, because certainly guys couldn't do anything. I mean, Vogelbach, it was kind of, I guess, fun loving with him, but the guy really isn't much of an everyday player. And I do have some comments.
Can I just say one thing to piggyback real quick, Tom? I was at the game on Tuesday, like I said, and the amount of Vogelbach jerseys that were out there, I'm like, why are you all wearing Vogelbach? He's not even that good.
Well, I think it's the appeal. I think it's kind of like how, I guess, certain Islander fans revered, let's say, like a Casey Zizekas or a Matt Martin or, somebody like that, where they look at kind of like maybe the guy is like, he's got that certain look about him, that certain blue collar.
I guess so.
It out.
Comparison. Those guys are key players for the Islanders.
No, I understand. Well,
Right?
Vogelbach was getting on base. But Vogelbach was getting on base a lot for the Mets last year. He was getting on base. I wouldn't necessarily say.
Yeah, but his job is to hit. He walks and gets on base, and they need someone to help him to move.
That's why they got him. We spoke about this last year on Sportswire. And they brought him in because he's a hot. I'm with you, though. Listen, I didn't think at the time that was the move. I remember asking everybody here and saying, well, they're going to do something else, just the appetite. People were like, yes, yeah, they're going to do more. And they didn't do it to that, magnitude. Then they got the guy from the bullpen that did nothing for them. They brought him in. They couldn't even use him. So that's kind of. Yep, and the guy did literally. What did he come in? He pitched 10 games for them in the bullpen. And it was like he was an automatic guy that you had to take out there. But John Gonzalez and Joe Dell have some comments. Let me read them off here first before I come back to the guys here. And Mauricio will be in a slump as of tomorrow. The Brute gave him the vote of confidence. Well, some people might say that because when you do talk about confidence, you do hype people up.
That's my segue to quickly say, how about them Phillies? How they doing? How they doing?
Phillies in a second. I'll give you the floor to Phillies in a second. Mauricio to second, McNeil to left, Canada DH. What do you guys make of that?
Yeah,
they should move Mauricio now to second base. Have him start to work out there. You don't want to move a kid up from the minors and just say, okay, play a position you haven't played ever. You know what I mean? Start working him at second base then, if that's the plan, which I think it'll work. But I wouldn't want to bring him up and say, okay, play second. You know, let him play second down in the minors for a while. Let him get the feel of the base. You know, it's a little different. You know, it's not that bad, but it is a little different to go from short to second. So just play it a little bit to get used to it, you know?
Now, I think this comment should be brought up here first on the screen, and I'll come back to other people here in a second, and we'll get the Mets update in a second, along with the rest of the Major League Baseball scores and that. John Gonzalez was at Walmart, I'm assuming on Long Island. I forget where it is, but I know it's further out. And he says, I saw a Brutes Brew Crew jersey at 75% off. Now, I would have said 90, but 75?
Oh, man.
I mean, who's wearing them these days? I mean, Jake Guggenheimer is somewhere in like a milk carton. I mean, the Superman brothers, I don't think are in New York. Fitzpatrick is trying to be a college basketball coach at Cortland. Spoke about him. I mean, Sal Camasuli, maybe he's rocking the Brew Crew jersey still. I mean, who else could actually be wearing one of these things?
You know, this is another classic example of John Gonzalez having too much time to think about something to bring up. I mean, well, where did this come from? I mean, all of a sudden he's talking. I mean, we know he loves Walmart. He has mentioned that on the show. He's really a big fan of Walmart. I mean, he's always talking about how he's, you know, he gets this and that from Walmart. So he must be a frequent shopper. I got to say that.
I've only actually been to Walmart just once in my life. My uncle lives in Connecticut. The only time I ever
the point from earlier, Tom. I mean, you know, where's the proof? What location could I go to find this? Because I'd like to find it, John Gonzalez. So show me the proof of what Walmart I can go to. I'll be there tomorrow.
All right, so moving on here. John Gonzalez says Vientos is the odd man out. Yeah, I mean,
I actually disagree with that. I actually disagree with that comment.
Okay, why do you disagree?
Because I wouldn't say he's exactly the odd man out. He is the guy that is not going to get the most, you know, starting opportunity, because I think Beatty's going to be the guy. And, you know, also you have Mauricio play second. But Vientos, is, you know, if he was up, I mean, he would get some time. I mean, Beatty and him, you know, at times could, you know, platoon. You know, he's capable of playing the outfield. He could DH. And also, I mean, you look at the other day, just an example. I was at the Mets game, Tom Bryce, right? And we pitch hit Tomas Nido in the ninth inning to be the right-handed hitter off the bench. I mean, please, can we get somebody better to be somebody to come off the bench late in the game? I mean, Vientos can do that. I'm pretty sure he'd be better than Nido to do that.
Yeah, Nido, unfortunately, is one of these guys. You know, listen, he's certainly a handy backup catcher, and Ernest Dove certainly would praise him to the T. And you know, there are certain guys. I mean, Guillorme, I think he's been right on. Guillorme, I think, has 3 walks today. So, I mean, I'll give you Guillorme at least gets on base, but Nido is one of these guys. I mean, he just doesn't really provide much. And Joe Dell wants to get in on the fun. He says probably a sale on the Vogelback jerseys, but there's a lot of them. You know, I'm with you, Brad. There's actually a high amount of either Vogelback shirts or jerseys. I just think there's kind of like an appeal to him. There's kind of, it's the look, it's the image. I think that's just what it is, in my opinion. I don't know.
I think so too. I think it's like he's every man and, you know, the blue collar baseball player. And I think that's what they like because, you know, Brute's right. You see so many of his jerseys there. I couldn't believe it the other day. They were showing it on, you know, on the broadcast, and there were so many of his jerseys. It was crazy.
It was nuts. Just in our section alone, there was a bunch. I mean, and of course, let me talk about another guy that we've talked about on the show, Jason Getz. All right, Jason.
Bring him up.
Jason Getz was wearing a Vogelback jersey, but it says Vogelberger on the back instead of Vogelback. So, you know, I'm like, what are you doing, Jason Getz? You wearing a jersey Vogelberger? I mean, come on, man. I mean, he was, again, just a part of the crew of Vogelbacks that were all over the place.
Well, I mean, listen, maybe there was a Vogel burger. Maybe it tastes better than the All-American burger, because the All-American burger, it's okay. I'm not trying to trash on All-American burger. It's just not like how I put it, the best burger. But that's what's here nor there. But I will come back to Mr. Getz, Mr. DeSimone. But John Gonzalez actually had, I guess I'll let Chris maybe jump in on this. It's kind of a non-baseball story, but it's an interesting story. Magic Johnson and his group are buying the Commanders. What do you make of that? You know, it obviously just kind of broke a little while ago. Any thoughts on that? Magic Johnson getting into the football world more or less?
Well, I think Washington fans are delighted about anybody buying that team.
Well, other than Daniel Snyder, right? Obviously.
I think if we put up enough money, they would be happy with us buying the team. They just want Snyder out of there. I think the NFL wants him out of there. The fans want him out of there. So I think it's great. As an Eagle fan, I would love to see Snyder stay there for the next 50 years. But unfortunately, he's just a piece of garbage. He's probably the worst owner in sports. He's even worse than Brute's favorite owner. So he is the worst owner in sports.
I will say
number two probably, but
I will say this, and we'll move on in a second. But if you think about the Commanders, obviously in the last 30 years, whether it's been like 30 or 31 years since they last won the Super Bowl, that franchise really hasn't had much success. What have they won? A division title, once or twice? They've won maybe a handful of playoff games. That was a franchise for a long time, if you think about it. Certainly in the 70s, 80s, up until their last Super Bowl. I mean, they were like one of the premier franchises around. I mean, George Allen and Joe Gibbs, and every year that team was a contender pretty much. They won 10 games or more, and kind of since that last Super Bowl, I don't think they've won many playoff games, maybe a handful of playoff wins at most. I mean, so it certainly is a franchise that is in dire straits for a wins. And John Gonzalez says, I'm a Duffy's guy. Yes, I am a Duffy's guy. That is correct. And before I kind of get into Dolan time, because we are getting toward the end of the show, and I do want to give the Brute Force that opportunity to address this. Now, before I do get to Dolan time, because we've obviously run the gauntlet on a couple of things. Now,
the tease.
Brad, you did want to kind of address professional wrestler. You kind of touched upon Sean Jovi, the resident rock star from our friends over at Wrestling Championship Entertainment. Certainly, Mr. Jovi appeared on our stream yesterday with Coach Winter. Certainly, Mr. Jovi was asked for some analysis on you, your size, your force-like moves, and what you might be able to do to use yourself as an object similar to what Mr. Jovi does in the ring. Obviously, he is the Ronus Championship Wrestling World Champion there. He certainly holds his own there. And Mr. DeSimone had asked for help when it came to dealing with you. And I want to give you the opportunity now, possibly to address Mr. Jovi, to address Mr. DeSimone, and anything else you might want to get on your chest toward that, because I'm sure a lot of people actually might want to hear what you might have to say about those fellows. I think especially toward the resident rock star, the RCW champion, the resident rock star, Sean Jovi.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me talk about Sean Jovi first. First of all, he's got some good style. That's number one. He's got some nice glasses. Right?
Yeah, how about the hair, by the way? Did you see his hair?
Yeah, he's got good style. That's number one. I want to make sure I bring that up. But listen, Sean Jovi, all right? And first of all, I want to say this. This is not his fault, all right, because he was asked this question.
Said he didn't know. He didn't know enough about you.
And he was put on the spot by a guy who I'm going to put on Front Street right now. I've been working with him all week, and that is James DeSimone. I've been doing a spring break camp. All right, this guy goes on Sean Jovi's show and asks him about advice about how to beat me up. I mean, what kind of coworker and friend is that? You go on the show and you
but were you bullying him though? Was there a point were you actually bullying James DeSimone? Because that's what he was saying with us.
Come on, I mean, first of all, we all know here, all right, that I am not a bully. All right, and listen, James DeSimone. It's just, first of all, it's more jealousy, when it comes to my size over him and all that. And
we did talk about that yesterday. I'll give you that.
But I will say this, all right. First of all, Sean Jovi was correct, though, when it comes to, big guys. If you're wrestling big guys, you got to take them down from your legs. It's definitely true. You got to use, the legs to our disadvantage. With that being said, James DeSimone is 5'8". I am 6'5". All right, and I weigh more than him. So just to put it in this perspective, he ain't taking me down. All right, nor does he want to do that because I am the brute force. So you got to remember that.
Well, I will say this: even Anthony Finkel, I think you were like taller than Anthony Finkel, and I think we were trying to compare for the last couple of years, you and Saperstein, who's just taller, and I think Steve says you might even have the edge over him.
Yeah. So listen, Sean Jovi, you were right. All right, and I appreciate you for giving an honest answer. All right, but James DeSimone, all right, calm down. All right, because what you trying to beat up the brute force for? All right, because you're jealous of the height, or because you think you can beat me one-on-one, which you can't. So listen, I love James DeSimone. We're working all week together. We're actually hanging out before this, and I actually have a big announcement when it comes to him because I think it's almost time to see him on this show. So
I was wondering when that time was going to come. I spoke to Mr. D.
Another thing, by the way,
Mr. D.
on this, to stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Okay,
Keep listening. We'll talk about that.
Now, I will say before I move on to Dolan time, I would ask the other guys. I mean, maybe they should have been the ones that kind of got some advice on how to take down the brute force, because Chris and Rob Maraska, they know Brad maybe better than Sean Jovi, because there is a point to be made that Sean Jovi doesn't know Brad. I mean, and Sean Jovi goes, "Oh, he was a basketball player. Well, I'm not. I'm a wrestler. He's a basketball player." And he kind of looked at his size and was like, "Well, he was, to be fair, diplomatic." And I was speaking with Sean off the air, and he did say, "Yeah, I heard that clip, and I heard he shared it on Instagram." And he was like, "Yeah, he's a big guy." He looked him up. He goes, "Oh, damn, he's big."
Hey, the brute. I said it last night. When on the show, I typed it. The brute is the best. So
Yeah.
who wants to take him down? But I gotta say something before you go into Dolan time.
Yes, and I'm gonna give a baseball score update because I want to give a score rundown.
Yeah, well, the Mets are leading 12-3, but this is
Yes.
real quick. What were they thinking in Philadelphia the other night, Tuesday night? $1 hot dog night in Philly. And the fans were hurling hot dogs at each other in the stands, on the field at Citizens Bank Park. Attendance was 43,000.
Wow.
And as of 9 p.m., they sold 58,000 hot dogs. What were they thinking?
So wait. So time out. All right, time out here. So the hot dog's $1, right? Which I appreciate the dollar segment. They sold 58,000. Now, was that more than anticipated, or what was the line on that?
Well, that was before 9 p.m. and the game wasn't even over yet. That was
right.
And that's when they were just throwing the hot dogs. I don't know what they anticipated.
No, I don't know about you guys. If there was $1 hot dog, I can't remember the last time $1 hot dog was, if ever. I wouldn't be throwing it. I'd be scarfing it down my mouth. Not that I'm a big hot dog guy to begin with.
Can we think about
Philadelphia?
Can we think for a second how much they make off hot dogs then? If they're selling them for $1 one night, all the other nights they sell them for what? How much are they? Like $13 at the game?
I was gonna say like $12, $13, right?
Think about that.
Yeah, but only in Philadelphia they're chucking their dollar hot.
Well, I was just at the go ahead, Brad, jump in.
I got to make a comment on this one because first of all, I'd like to say that because we just came off talking about Sean Jovi giving advice about beating me up. Well, Philadelphia Phillies fans, especially from my take, might want to start beating me up. All right now, from what I've done to their team. And maybe that's why they're so angry that they're throwing hot dogs at each other. And I fully blame that Philly fanatic, by the way. That's definitely the fanatic's fault. All right, because, that thing that looks like garbage definitely did not promote throwing those hot dogs in the garbage. Instead, throwing it at each other. But I will say, too, and Chris, you'll get a kick out of this one. All right, at the Mets game again, I'm referring to seeing that Mets game again. All right, there was a section next to us where there was a couple Yankee fans, and they were cheering "Let's Go Yankees" at the Met game. Turns out that, there started a food fight going on in the stands. And those Yankee fans were the ones that got kicked out, and everybody was cheering. So, more food fightings for you, but mostly because of the Yankee fans. So, again, I'm not blaming Yankee fans in general. I'm just saying these guys were a little bit crazy. So, but listen, when it comes to the Phillies, come on, Rob. I mean, Philly fans, this is what they do. They do these things. They think, they could be throwing things around, the fanatic don't stop it, so why not do it? I mean, it's just crazy, these Phillies. I mean, good luck to you guys. You got off to a great start.
Yeah, listen, I mean, throwing hot dogs around. I mean, I was just at the movies, and I think it was a popcorn and a soda I paid with a discount like $18. So if I would have added the hot dog, would have been about to Chris's point, $30. Yeah, that's how it goes these days. And I do have a bunch of comments. I'll get to the scores. Joseph Bostrom says 12-3 Mets. They are getting their revenge for the 1973 World Series. Is that what it's really about? I mean, I feel like these teams have faced off before. And John Gonzalez says, "Hey, now the Brute is my boy. Nobody's taking him down." Well, James DeSimone is not. He's 5'8". I mean, And Sean Jovi, to his credit, was like, I didn't know he played college basketball. He goes, oh, he played college basketball. That was his words. Oh, he played college basketball. I don't know basketball, but I know he played. He's big. So, to be fair, give him that much. The brute rules, yes, we definitely agree with that. Typical Philly. Yeah, I just don't get how you go to a game. And also on the point about the Yankee fans getting thrown, that reminded me when I had Islander season tickets and Islanders would be getting blown out in a game or a game would be out of hand. There'd be a handful of Ranger fans chanting like, let's go Rangers, and Islanders sucks. And then they would get thrown out of games just for whatever reason. So that does happen. Also, Joseph Bostrom wants me to ask him what he thought of Creed 3. I mean, I won't spoil Creed 3. If you're going to tell me what you think about the movie without spoiling it, yeah, feel free. I mean, I thought the movie was good. I think it'll probably get Oscar consideration, although after thinking about it, so I don't want to really spoil the movie. I would say some of the things I disagreed with, but I think it's a good movie. But go see it. But if you want to tell me what you think about it without giving it away, you could definitely do that. And John Gonzalez says, years ago, the White Sox had a 10-cent beer night. All hell broke loose. Now, was that the disco game? Was that Disco Sucks?
That was a different game. They did the 10 cents beer night, and they did the Burn and Break the Disco album night too. Both of them
10 cents beer. Now, I'm not a beer drinker. I know the Brew Force is probably like me, but 10 cents beer and all hell broke loose. I mean, that certainly sounds like why would they not be surprised if you're going to charge 10 cents for a beer? Because now, I mean, what are the tall boys now? I think $10. I think when I last went to a game, it was like $9 before COVID. We went to a Liberty game. I think it was like $8. So, yeah, I could certainly see all that here. All right, so we got that stuff covered. Let me go to the MLB scores because I want to give everybody score updates here. Tigers beat the Giants 7-5. Phillies beat the Reds 8-3. Those aforementioned Phillies, Brad, get one up on you. They certainly want to prove you wrong and prove actually that you were correct after all, just maybe, with a big win over the hapless Reds, who, by the way, I was looking at their starting pitcher, is giving up something like 14 runs in 11 innings. I think it was Overton. 14 runs in 11 innings so far. So the Reds are certainly going to have their problems. Marlins get a win over the D-backs. Spoke about the D-backs. Maybe they are an aberration after all, 5-1. Twins we spoke about earlier beat the Yankees 4-3. Guardians get a win over the Nationals 4-3. Obviously, Nationals we don't expect much from. Guardians we expect obviously to be a little bit better than where they are. Blue Jays we spoke about earlier 6-3, finally defeating the Rays. Rays get their first loss of the season. Red Sox 5, Angels 3. Red Sox kind of holding fort somewhat 7-8. Patrick, I'm sure, will have something to say about that on Monday's show. Orioles 6, White Sox 3. White Sox, I feel like, might be one of those teams this year that they could be like the Phillies. This could be in for a long, long season here. Rangers 6, Astros 2. Nobody's talking about Jacob deGrom pitching too poorly right now because his last couple of starts, he's certainly bounced back there. So Met fans and Mets Twitter certainly has been quiet about that right now. Rangers have bounced back a little bit here of late. Braves continue their hot start over the Royals. They have the confidence led by the Brute Force from last year starting in June. 10-3 over the Royals. Royals we don't expect much from so far. I guess to Chris's point, maybe Brute Force's point, Cardinals 3, Pirates nothing. And Oakland does get one back here in the bottom of the fifth. It's 12-4 though Mets. And Francisco Lindor has 7 runs batted in here so far. Wow. Nimmo, 7 runs batted in so far. I believe he's got 2 home runs, I think. And Marte's got 2 RBIs. Nimmo's got 2 RBIs. Marte's got 3 walks, as Brad's point correctly about Met guys getting on base. Vogelbach does have a walk and an RBI, but no hits. Escobar, same thing, kind of a similar box score. Luis Guillorme, 3 walks. Interesting there. Tomas Nido kind of making I guess some Met fans eat crow, has 2 walks himself. So I think what the moral of the story here tonight is Mets are just getting on base via the walk. The Oakland A's are just really afraid of the Mets offense. And Steven Nagosic, our old friend, is on the mound here right now. We've had him on a few times. And Senga really wasn't that great tonight. Senga was more like how a Sega works these days. Not so good. So for the Sega fans here that used to play Sega, that's kind of where we're at with that. Few more scores of note. Brewers are crushing the Padres. And the Brewers were the team we really didn't talk about in the Central. And that's the team that has been in the playoffs more than anybody else in that division in the last 5 years. They're up 10-1 over the Padres. Mariners 5, Rockies 1. Mariners we expect a lot from here. And the Cubs 3, the Dodgers 2. And standings update very quickly. Guardians 2 games back from the Twins. Blue Jays 4 back from the Rays. The Rangers, again, are in first place, making some Met fans eat crow. Also in the National League, as we spoke about, Braves 10-4. Mets, though, should get a win, will be 2 back. Brewers 9-4, could be 10-4, should be. Pirates 8-6, and then everybody else is kind of in the way. And then the Diamondbacks lead a logjam in the National League Western Division. Also, a few more comments before I do get to Dolan time. Creed 3 was dark. Yeah, without spoiling it, it was a dark movie. I would definitely say it was dark, but I don't like to spoil movies here, so I don't want to do that. But definitely see it. I actually like the movie. I do think if you're a Creed fan or a sports fan in general, definitely go see it. NFL draft talk in a couple weeks. Yes, I definitely think, when is the draft? The end of the month of the draft, correct me if I'm wrong, is the 27th? Is that when I'm
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So we'll definitely, I'm sure you guys will do a show. So yeah, maybe next week we'll get Justin back. I'll spend a few minutes on the draft. Yeah, I'll definitely do that draft. I'll definitely, then we'll maybe have a funny story on Rodgers, whether he's coming to watch. We'll do that. So yeah, draft. We'll do some draft talk next week. Bryce Harper will be back soon, working out at first base. And that's just for you, Brad. So Bryce Harper certainly coming back. Maybe gives the Phillies some added spark. Listen, last year, they started slow, 21-29. So the Phillies like to start slow. So who knows? Who knows? Just me.
He's going to come back and prove Brad 100% correct about his prediction.
Hey, you know what? That comments all about that. You know what? I do want to do
good and bad. There's good and bad in this.
You know, I do want to do it because we are getting close to the end of the show, and there are people out there that want to hear it. Joey Bostrom's obviously a Knicks fan. John Gonzalez loves it. Anthony Finkel is out there somewhere on a beach, probably with a napkin in his hand, writing notes about something, maybe about the house he bought and whatever else he's got going on here. I told him I would mention the congratulations, so I did congratulate him on the house. But the Brew Force, we're getting ready. It is a busy, busy week ahead for the New York Knicks. And I think it's interesting to note here for the locals, this is the first time since 1994 that, get this ready, ladies and gentlemen, that the Knicks, the Nets, the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Devils are all in the postseason. And if you count it, you count the Giants, they counted. That was also that same year, 93, 94 into the calendar. Giants also made the postseason that year. So the Brew Force, kind of an interesting time in the basketball and hockey worlds here. All the locals are in the playoffs. And obviously in the NHL, the Devils and Rangers are playing each other. And the Knicks and Nets are playing some, I think, really intriguing series. Nets and 76ers once again match up. And the Knicks and Cavs, who do have some playoff history back in the mid-90s. And the Brew Force, a lot of people are very curious about what you have to say on Dolan Time, especially tomorrow. You are going to be glued, I know, wall to wall, in between level up this, level up that, between all the playoff games. Our Nets kick it off, but it ain't about the Nets. It's about that time. It's about those New York Knicks and your beloved owner, James Dolan. And obviously the shirt says it all, so the floor is yours on anything else you may want to share on Dolan Time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a great day to have Dolan Time. You know why, Tom Bryce? And the reason why I'm wearing a New York Knicks hat and a New York Knicks shirt? That's because I get to celebrate the New York Knicks making the playoffs once every 6 or 7 years. And this
2
is
times in 3 years. Slow it back. It's 2 out of 3.
What I'm saying is this doesn't happen every year. This doesn't happen every section. This is something that I am so proud that I got finally wear and see the Knicks be in the playoffs. All right, so that's why I'm taking it now, because I know that could be something that might not happen in the next 7 years, potentially, with the New York Knicks. So that's why I'm wearing New York Knicks colors. That is why I'm wearing a hat and a shirt. And why am I also wearing New York Knicks colors, ladies and gentlemen? Because I picked them last week on the show to win this series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I still think they're going to do so. We did get encouraging news from the Knicks that Julius Randle will be back for Game 1 tomorrow. So we are excited, hopefully, that he'll be on the court. And that'll help the Knicks, of course, who are preparing for those Cavaliers in a series that might be one of the best series that we're going to see here in the NBA playoffs because of the two teams, in regards to competition-wise, they're both pretty even teams. Obviously, we have the Donovan Mitchell effect against the New York Knicks, and obviously we all know that he wanted to come here. The Knicks didn't get it done. They ends up going to the Cavaliers, and now they're squaring off in the playoffs. So This is a big series for the Knicks. I mean, we haven't seen the Knicks win a series since 2013. I was in high school, for God's sake. So I'm still waiting to see the Knicks.
That's the only one since 2000, by the way. That's the one series victory since 2000.
Yeah, and I was born in 97, so I haven't seen nothing from these Knicks. And I'm hoping to see something like a playoff series victory, which to me, for the Knicks, might be like winning a World Series in my lifetime. Seeing them win a series in the playoffs would be great. And I do think they're going to do so. So I am excited for my Knicks. I am hyped as I'm wearing everything. I will say it, Tom, because I know you want me to. New York should stand up right now. They should stand up. They should be proud because the team is in the playoffs, and it's time, hopefully, for us to win a series. I think a lot of Knicks fans out there are confident that we can do it against these Cavaliers. Now, I actually want to end Dolan time on more of a general NBA thought because it is the playoffs. So I really should address some of these matchups that we're going to talk about.
There are some good ones, actually. This is not the only good series, by the way. There's a couple of coin tosses here.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple of them, and I want to go through a few. And obviously, I'll start by, taking Justin Gianelli's spot and talking about the Nets, which probably will be one of the worst series.
I was going to say, Brad, I don't think that's a toss-up one.
No, that is not. And I hate to say it for Justin. I know he's a Nets fan, but I do know he is a realist, and he will say that this is not going to be good for these Nets. I do have Philadelphia winning in 5 games. I think the Nets are going to maybe scratch out one win at the Barclays.
2019. That was in 2019. Same outcome. Sixers beat the Nets.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same. I think the Nets scratch out maybe the 4th game, and then Philly goes back to Philly and wins it in 5. But they don't have an answer for Joel Embiid. They don't have anyone to guard him. Some Nets fans like Jason Getz will tell me, oh, Brad, Nick Claxton, he's got him, right? No, he doesn't. All right, he'll probably have 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes. All right, and then they have nobody else. They have no other size. I know they got some Long Island Nets guys on the team, but that's not going to help against Joel Embiid. So I want to make that clear. But to go through some of the matchups, Tom, because I really think we should, I'd like to first talk about the Memphis Grizzlies against the Lakers. I think that's going to be an interesting series. We all know the Lakers have an up-and-down season. They got off to that slow start.
They played well toward the end of the season, though.
They did, and their game against the Timberwolves was absolutely disgusting at the end of the game.
Oh, my God. I was actually watching that, too.
Brutal to watch that game. And as a basketball coach, seeing the way that Memphis didn't move the ball and they took ridiculous shots. I mean,
how about how the Lakers had the lead and then at the last play they basically put them into overtime with the stupid foul?
Oh, my God. It was horrible. Just a horrible display of basketball. But the Lakers did get past, and you can't really, send out LeBron James and Anthony Davis like they're going to just lose. And, they're going to put up a battle in this series. And the Memphis Grizzlies are a good young team, obviously led by Ja Morant. So I am going to say Memphis does win, but it will be in 7 games. I think it's going to go down to the wire. But I got a feeling in Memphis. I know, never doubt LeBron James, one of those things. But I do think that this year the Memphis Grizzlies are the better team, and I think they will win. Now, this one's interesting, Tom. I'm going to stay in the West before I go to the East.
I know where you're going on this one. I feel like you stole my notes, but go ahead.
I'm going to go with the Sacramento Kings against the Golden State Warriors, all right? And 2 teams that are from Northern California. You got Mike Brown, who used to be the assistant with Golden State, now doing an absolutely terrific job with the Kings, has them as the 3 seed, and they're going to have the advantage in this series with the home court. So, with that being said, a lot of people are going with Golden State because of their experience, obviously. They've obviously won the championship last year, but this year they've been horrible on the road. And I know that Sacramento
– games on the road or something like that?
It was brutal. I mean, they were like – I want to say like 14 and 30 something like on the road.
Like 14 and 27, I think. That was what I had.
It was horrendous. So the only thing is, Tom, is that when it comes to the playoffs and Sacramento, if there's any place that feels like somewhat home for Golden State, it probably is Sacramento. So
Sacramento is the capital, ironically, of California. So yeah,
it's not that far of a ride for these fans. So I do think that Golden State's going to pull it off. I think they win in 6. And I do think Sacramento, even though they had an amazing season, their experience is going to be tested here, and they don't have it. And Golden State does. So I do think their experience will show in the playoffs, and they will get the job done. Andrew Wiggins might return for them as well, which would be a big add for Golden State. So I will give them the edge there. The Phoenix Suns against the Clippers, another interesting series. You got obviously Kevin Durant there in Phoenix. You got the Clippers who might be without Paul George, which is going to be big. And that's why I got Phoenix winning that series in 6 games. Kawhi Leonard will be good, but again, too much from
Yeah, I feel
Phoenix.
like that Phoenix team is built to win the championship. This is like their record. Throw out the regular season record with them. It's about now going deep and rectifying what they couldn't do 2 years ago.
Yeah, so again, I think it's Phoenix. They got to win this series. They lose this series, some guys are going to get fired and something's going to happen. So they got to win this series. They have Kevin Durant. They have firepower, so they'll win. The series up top, obviously, we don't know. The playing game's currently going on. I believe Minnesota was winning, but it'd probably be Minnesota against Denver. I like Denver a lot. I think they're going to get far. So I got Denver winning that series easily against whoever it is. They are a great team, and they have a lot of depth.
And Timberwolves are up 23, by the way. It's 6 minutes left. So
So they got that. Quickly to the East, I'll just go over it very fast. Milwaukee against Miami. Miami won tonight in the play-in. I do think Milwaukee's going to win, but Miami's not a team to push over. I know that they didn't look good in the play-in tournament, but I do think in the playoffs, all right. You're starting to agree with me. Okay, John, there we go. Yes, agree. All right, but listen, all right, I do think Milwaukee will win, but I think it'll take the full 7 to get past Miami. I think Miami's going to give them a run, but I do think that Milwaukee's too much for them, and they will win. I already mentioned the Cleveland, New York one. I got New York. I got Philly against Brooklyn. And the last one is going to be
Atlanta.
All right, the Boston Celtics, which I know a lot of Boston fans. Matt Hurd.
Alec Willis, another friend of ours.
Joe LeRae, a bunch of other guys against James Cronin and his Atlanta Hawks. All right, by the way, who he rubbed it in when they beat Miami the other day because I thought they were going to lose. But I will say this, James Cronin, you may smile now, but you won't be in a little bit because the Hawks are going home in 5 games. All right, they're going to lose to these Celtics. I would be so happy, even though I've never been a fan of the Celtics. In this case, just because it's James Cronin, all right, I want the Celtics to sweep them out of town, all right? Again, he's a big Trae Young fan, so I am hoping for the Celtics to win, even though I never really have rooted for the Celtics. But I do think they're actually going to win in 5 games. So I'm excited for the NBA playoffs, Tom, but it's just nice to hear and talk about it here on the show that we can mention playoffs with the New York Knicks. And again, if they get the job done, it would be something where I wouldn't have to pick on James Dolan as much. And I know John Gonzalez would be happy to hear that.
And before we get to closing thoughts here, and just to frame it in a local sense for the NHL and the NBA, I think it's good for the tri-state area when you have the Knicks in the postseason. You have the Nets. Nets were able to kind of hold above water and keep themselves above the play, and they made the postseason. Obviously, in the NHL, you get the Rangers make the playoffs, the Devils make the playoffs, and the Islanders make it as well. So I think it's good when, obviously, the tri-state area, whether it's New Jersey, Long Island, New York, are kind of rocking, and you get that opportunity to go deep into the postseason. And hopefully some of these teams here go out and do that. Obviously, some teams have maybe a better chance than others. Obviously, Knicks, I think, do have a puncher's chance. Nets, I don't know. I mean, Randy Dillon was on the air, and he thought the Islanders actually had a chance against the Hurricanes. Obviously, somebody will advance between the Devils and the Rangers, so it is a good time in New York. I remember coming on, Brad, a couple years ago, and everybody was like, New York sports, it's in a terrible state, and nobody's winning, just the Yankees. But now you got all these teams are competitive. The Mets are doing well, right? The Yankees are doing well. Giants were in the playoffs, won a game. The only team really that needs to get its act together is the Jets, but everybody else here in the local area is actually doing okay right now. So let's keep it going. And first time since 1994, all those NBA and NHL teams are in the playoffs. I would have never guessed it's been that long, but it tells you really how bad some of these teams have been for a while. The Knicks haven't had that much success, and the Devils haven't been good for a while, and Islanders have been okay recently, but weren't good for a long time. And obviously, Nets have been up and down, had the 2 finals years, but certainly been peaks and valleys. And obviously, Rangers also have been actually pretty good for the most part since the lockout, but they've obviously are back here also. And a number of comments here before we get to closing thoughts. John Gonzalez thinks the Nets are getting wiped out. Joseph Bostrom says Knicks in 6. Philly in 5 over Brooklyn. Boston in 6 over Atlanta. He likes Milwaukee in 5 over Miami. John Gonzalez says you will give Julius Randle the confidence. John Gonzalez also likes the Golden State Warriors, the Phoenix Suns, and also we played the comment about the sleep. He also says James Cronin or James Dolan. I think it's Dolan he's speaking about more. It's Dolan time, but be that as it may. We all remember what happened in 1994. Well, listen, the Knicks went to the seventh game of the NBA Finals, and the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. Well, I don't necessarily know if those things are going to happen this year. We'll have to see if at least somebody gives us a deep run. Rangers did go to the conference finals last year, so Islanders also, to give them credit, a couple of years back-to-back runs to the conference finals. So listen, you never know. And listen, Randy pointed out the Islanders have the goaltender right now, so maybe we'll see what happens. But that's all great stuff. We really spoke about everything. We spoke about Mars bars. We spoke about Brad Weiss and wrestlers getting involved. But we also spoke the NBA. We spoke the NHL, Major League Baseball, maybe even a tease toward next week's show when it comes to the NFL draft. And these guys certainly did a great job with this. So let's get to closing thoughts here first. I'm going to go with you, Rob Maraska. I'm going to give you the floor. Anything else you want to plug, share, say? And the floor is yours, my friend, and good job. And certainly we'll see what the A's fans think about some of your comments, and we'll certainly play them on Twitter as long as the contest winner as well. And floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, we got to do the Philly clip on the Phillies too, because I want to tag them also and see what they say. So
all right,
that'll be a good clip. Anyway, I want to congratulate at that Mets chick again, Brianna Sosa of Bay Shore, New York, for winning the latest contest. I'm going to have more contests during the whole season. People seem to love these contests. I get a lot of people looking for these cards, so it's been going really, really well. And once again, I want to thank you guys for retweeting them and, helping me out with the contest. So I'm really happy with the results. We're getting some listeners, and I'm getting more followers. So, thanks a lot, guys. And, looking forward to next week's show.
Absolutely. All great stuff there. You can follow Rob Maraska, Twitter at @RMaraska. Also send him a friend request on Facebook at Rob Maraska. So great stuff there. Chris, I'm going to give you the floor. I know Randy kind of teased. We're going to see you on the Hockey Fan Chat this weekend. I'll definitely play that with Randy, and we'll play the Liftoff Jets show, which I have to play, and I also have the Talking Rivals we'll keep in there. So anything else you want to plug, share, say, floor is yours, my friend, and fire away.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for everything, guys. Great show as always. Great time tonight. I was a little surprised. Randy asked me to join him for his NHL playoff preview show, so I had to do some extra homework today.
Wow. Okay.
Outside of
Randy's shows are very informative. I have to say, I've listened to a number of them, and he usually gets like these kind of under the radar guests, but they're really well informed.
Yeah, so I'm going to try my best. Not to embarrass I'll be pretty good. I told him I did extra homework today on it.
No, he's actually he's fair. I've to say, I've heard him, the way he speaks, and he gives the opportunity to people. So no, he won't do as bad a job as I'll do on you. So don't worry about it.
It's his show, so I'm just gonna let him run. So I'll be fine. But it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm gonna give you a tennis show this week as well. So we'll get every sport. No, I'm kidding.
Wow. Okay. Tennis. No. All right. I think that was Brad. Were we on a show actually speaking of tennis? Brad, Monday with Gordon Scheuer, basketball player, we actually spoke, son of a gun, we spoke about tennis because this guy Gordon walked on to be a college tennis player, and it turned out he was an all-conference tennis player. So we actually spent like 5 minutes on tennis. We were both talking about how we couldn't get the hang of tennis, and this guy Gordon Scheuer walked on and became a all-conference tennis player.
That's great. That's actually really impressive.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm actually going to be at Citi Field tomorrow night for the NYC FC.
Yeah, I saw
New York
that.
City Football Club. Yeah.
Okay.
For their the soccer match, because they usually play at Yankee Stadium, but the Yankees are home, so they're playing at Citi Field tomorrow night. So my daughter and her boyfriend are going, and they wanted me to go, so
that's pretty.
I'm
cool.
going. So I'll be there, and then Monday I'll be recording with Patrick for Talking Rivals, and we'll do the Yankees and Red Sox. Red Sox, I know he's not going to have any good things to say about Boston, so it's probably not going to be a positive show. But and then Liftoff Jets, of course, later in the week with Sharman, and hopefully we'll get some news about Aaron Rodgers or whatever. Or if it's not happening, let's get another quarterback, because we definitely need a quarterback either way,
this
right?
is turning into like
it's a mess.
This is turning into like almost a hostage crisis. It's turning
Yeah.
into OJ and the Bronco chase in the freeway. This is turning into almost like a joke. I mean, I'm not trying to compare those with national
No.
stories, but in terms of like this is going on way
I'm
too
tired of
long.
talking about it every day on Twitter and.
Well, that's why I didn't want to bring it up this week. We'll do it next week. We have a draft show, obviously. I'll let some of the guys, wrap on that. Obviously, I'm sure Brad and Justin, when he comes back, Justin will be back with us next week. I know Justin had a prior engagement. Certainly want to make sure we acknowledge him. So, yeah, we'll definitely speak about all that. And certainly we appreciate that you're not going to send us a tennis show, even though we spoke tennis with Brad on the air with our friend Gordon Shoyer. I know he's going to be back with us for college basketball coverage, but later on, certainly that'll be. But follow Chris CP7NY Instagram and Twitter. Also, Liftoff Jets and Talking Rivals on Twitter as well. Make sure to follow the guys. The guys do a great job. Charmin and Patrick do a really good job. I got to listen to the last 2 Talking Rivals show quite a bit, and I really, really enjoyed what you guys bring to the table. So thank you for that, for your hard work. And certainly, while we didn't save the best for last, we actually figuratively did save the biggest for last because, well, he is. I don't know if he's 6'5", but he's about 6'4", because I know that you're just a nod over Mr. Saperstein. So I know your height at least is 6'4". I'm not sure if it's 6'5". They say you do lose an inch or two over time. We'll see if that's the case for you. But certainly the brute force Brad Weiss will have a lot to say. We saw a lot of each other this past week, had a lot of fun. We have some more shows in the pike together. I know you might talk about maybe one that's on the way. I know another coach had reached out to me about maybe coming on, but his schedule is a little tight right now for the next few weeks, but we'll definitely get him back on. But the brute force Brad Weiss, you know the drill at this point. You've done these so many times. That was your 4th closing thought in the last week, so you know the drill. I can say no further. I need to say no further, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, Tom. Yeah, I've become a pro at these closing thoughts. So thank you guys for coming on, and thank you for another great week of Friday Night Live here on the show. Chris, Rob, of course, Randy Dillon. I always want to give him a shout out for doing a great job before us. And obviously, we miss Justin. We miss Billy McInerney. So hopefully, these guys.
Yeah, Billy's like a cameo guy, though. He's not really a regular. I mean, he's not really a regular guy.
He'll be back for some Rangers talk. So looking forward to hearing one. And thank you to all the guys supporting. Of course, Joey Bostrom, Anthony Finkel, John Gonzalez. I go down the list. Joe Dell. Thank you for all you for tuning in and supporting, and everyone else who is obviously listening from wherever you are.
People all over the place. Yep.
Yeah, you can follow me on Facebook, Bradley Weiss, Twitter at BradWeiss20, and Instagram at BWeiss20 or at Coach Brad Weiss. And I want to start this off, obviously, by thanking our guests from this past week. Gordon Shoyer was fantastic. It doesn't get much better than Gordon Shoyer on the Sports Report.
Gordon's a natural. He can even do us as impersonations. We don't even have to do the show no more.
Yeah, but just the way he talks, the way that he answers questions, how professional he is. And not only that, his leadership skills and qualities. It's obvious. And, I'm speaking to people that don't even know Gordon that were listening to the interview, and they're like, that guy's really impressive. And he's really good at what, at talking.
Well,
and
his
just
life story was very impressive. Listen, this guy went to Lebanon Valley College. He goes to St. Joe's. He's now in Stony Brook as a business assistant. He's starting up like 2 other things here with Ryan McNeely, our other friend. Look at his father was a coach, and this guy is like light years ahead of anything anybody could think of him for.
Yeah, so he's been fantastic for us. He obviously supports us a lot. So thank you, Gordon, for coming on. Of course, my guy, who obviously means a lot to me because he employs me, but also he's really made an impact on my basketball coaching career, and that's Jesse Winter. He was a long time waiting for him to get on the show, and we're just happy that we were able to get him on. And have a great interview. Again, I've heard many different people already reach out to me saying that they wanted to hear this, or that, that they heard a clip and they want to hear more and they enjoyed it. So it means a lot to me.
I just shared one on Instagram, by the way. I just shared one before we were in the air to hype that up.
Yeah. So again, it means a lot to me to hear that from many different people, whether it's parents, players, other people involved with our program. And again, the more now that they heard Jesse Winter, now we have coaches like Kelly Dempsey, Ashley Jackson, amongst others in our program that are interested in coming on and speaking. So
we'll bring them on. We'll bring them on. Bring them up.
So
Batter up, as they say.
again, level up. We're truly leveling up our game as we always do, and we want to thank everybody, including our great friend Jesse Winter came on for the great program we run. Of course,
coach, by the way, he had hay fever. I mean, this guy, what a trooper, has hay fever.
Listen, he was dying to come on the show. He wanted to be on here. So he Michael Jordan flu game, came on the show no matter what he was doing.
I don't know if hay fever is like the flu. I mean,
no, I'm just saying, he could have quit, but he didn't. So, we thank Jesse for, coming on. Again, he was great, fantastic, answered our questions and in a professional manner, just like Gordon, and did a great job. So you can follow us at levelup_LI on all social media platforms. I want to give a shout out to my friend and also another coach in the program, Chris Montalbano, and of course, James DeSimone. They both work with me all week at the spring break camp, which Jesse allowed us to work and do it, and run it ourselves, which again means a lot of trust from Jesse. So we want to thank him, and we had a great week at camp. So shout out to those two guys for a great week. And of course, I got to say it because it's coming. I think we have it down, Tom Bryce, that as much as this guy gets on my last nerve, and I'm sure he's going to when he gets on the Sports Report with us. All right, James DeSimone is on his way on.
He's on his way. All right.
We're looking good potentially for Tuesday, the 25th of April. So we're going to see if that works. But again, we were looking good. James wants to come on. He's dying to come on and then talk to us about his career, about what he's done, about what he wants to do in the future, about his commitment to Mr. Cordia. So we are excited for that. Again, hopefully Tuesday, April 25th. Stay tuned with Sportswire Radio to hear the latest with that. And again, like Tom said, many interviews that we have. We have Doug Levy interested in coming back on.
And Doug messaged me, by the way. You stole my notes because he messaged me today, actually.
Yeah, we got Doug Levy. We got Jason Gaudiezzo. We got, who's who of people from the college world. Of course, you got Chisholm coming on. I mean, we have so many great.
Yeah, Divine's a good one. Divine's going to be a good one.
I'm excited to hear that. So it means a lot to us that people want to come on our show, want to support, want to, express their feelings and talk about their careers and what they do on our show. So thank you to everybody. We can't wait for it. And I can't wait for another great show next week, Tom. So thank you. Thank you, Chris and Rob, once again. Rob, next week, all right, we might have to change the color again, but we're going to be wearing the same shirts again, same colors. So thank you, everybody, for supporting. And thank you, Tom, for another great week of the show.
Now, before we move on, I say my final thoughts. Now, when I have Divine on Tuesday, I'm probably going to – I hadn't thought about this, but I think I actually will. Is there any memorable moments you and Divine have with each other? Because you did cross paths. York and St. Joe's did play each other. I actually have to think about this now because I want to phrase this in a way. I mean, don't spoil anything, but is there a memorable moment that you have with Divine?
Well, I will say this for Divine. First of all, my senior year, I was hurt the game we played York. So I wasn't on the court to face him. But, years before that, I just remember playing him. Obviously, he was a great player. He was always one of those top guys.
A clutch player. Yeah, he was a clutch player.
He was always one of the top guys on the scouting report when it came to York. So, again, he had a terrific career. We faced off a little bit on the court, whether it was, again, from me being on the court or not. So, again, I'm looking forward to hearing from him. I know he really supports what we do here on the show.
Yeah, he's a big fan of ours. Yep.
So I'm really looking forward to hearing from him. And listen, if he has any memories, I'll definitely be ears open to hearing that.
I'm going to ask him. I told him that I would probably give him some topics. I think this will probably be one of the clues. So, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. He had an interesting career. I think his career mimics in a lot of ways like a Matt Hurt. The first couple of years he plays, the team doesn't have a lot of success. The last two, they have a little bit more success in the CUNY. Get to the postseason. Last year he wins a game, and this year he gets a home playoff game. So I think that'll be a fascinating one. I'm sure I'm talking to him a lot about the St. Joe's guys because that was the one team we always played there. So I definitely look forward to that. I am Vine 2 on Instagram. So that'll be 9:30 Tuesday. And I'm very, very excited to have him. And also Mr. Doug Levy. I was speaking to Doug off the air, and I said to him, Doug, you're really famous and all this stuff now. And he actually, to his credit, said, Tom, You supported me all those years ago. So he says, I owe us on Sportswire. So he owes us. So that's always nice to know that Doug will come on. He said after spring semester. So he's got another, I guess, month or so. And then hopefully when he comes back home, we'll speak to the big man. A lot of interesting stuff to talk about there with Doug. Very, very excited. It's been a long time since we've had Doug on Sportswire. Right before I think he left to go play pro ball. I think we had him on during the pandemic. That was in I think May of 2020, about 3 years ago was the last time we had Doug. And I had Doug on a lot in those early years. So I appreciate that Doug remembers us. I appreciate that. I think like 600 people tuned into that clip alone. So a lot of people seem to want to hear about Doug Levy. And I think that that's a story that a lot of people definitely want to hear. And like I said, before we go and move on, Division III athletics, a lot of people shy away from it, Brad. But I think it's something that there's a story to be told with it. You think about the story of being a student athlete. You think about what the journey that you guys go through. And I think that that's a story that we're really the only outlet these days that covers it. I mean, there's really not too many people that still cover and give the time to D3 and JUCOs. And I have done it and I will continue to do it. And just like the wrestling world, the college basketball world is how we've been able to grow and be where we are. So I appreciate that. Also, Sunday night, Eric Kotovsky, a guy who was from Israel, learned how to play basketball, learned how to speak English from watching NBA stuff. And he's on his way to he's here in Minnesota, going to be a JUCO player, Anoka Ramsey College. So interested in his story and a lot of great stuff with college basketball. Mr. D. Simone sounds good for next Tuesday. So looking forward to that. We'll have to speak to the young man and hopefully speak more about basketball, less about Sean Jovi. So all great stuff there. But obviously I want to thank everybody that has supported. Also, all the Level Up people. We'll certainly talk about that off the air. But I want to thank everybody that is tuned in for a lively Sportswire radio show. In the last week, I think the last like 6 or 7 shows, the comments and the new people tuning in, all the great people coming in here, really appreciate your support. So I want to thank Chris Bizea of the Liftoff Jets, the Talking Rivals, also of the Hockey Fan Chat as a guest tomorrow. Rob Maraska, Contest Man, also does a job here with the Clips and other social media platforms like Twitter. And the man who is a New York Knicks fan, not to be confused with a Brooklyn Nets fan. He is the head coach for our Plainview JFK boys JV team, 27th all-time in rebounds for our St. Joe's Long Island men's basketball team. Also works as a coach for the Level Up Long Island basketball organization. Does some work with the very, very successful Long Island Nets. That is the brute force Brad Weiss. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I get a day off tomorrow, but I'll be back, as I mentioned, Sunday night all throughout the week on Sportswire. So if you were sick of me this past week, wait until you get a load of me this past week. We get a whole list of people coming on here from the basketball and the wrestling worlds and Friday nights with the Sportswire team, 9:30 p.m. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in on the number one global radio station. If you are on sportnerd.com/player, you go to Justin Gianelli and his baseball banter and a litany of shows. But thank you also to John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group. Go follow his group. Thank you. Have a good night. Also, thank you to Anastasia Riznia, who was tuned in earlier. We had some echo issues. She was the one, along with Rob Maraska, that got that fixed for us. So I appreciate that. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Enjoy the weekends. Enjoy the NYCFC club game, also at Citi Field. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. And good luck to all the teams that are playing locally out there.